This is the renowned Sichuan Tang clan, a family that roams the martial world through poison and hidden weapons. If anyone dares oppose them, there is only one outcome. They will not even have a chance to regret it. There has always been a rumor in the martial world: never provoke people in green robes, especially on a day as important as today. Tang Suhua asked, "Do you still recognize this outfit? This is the formal dress my father personally gave me for my birthday last year." Nangong slammed the table in disgust and stood up, cursing Tang Suhua for coming uninvited and daring to dress like this to ruin the Nangong family's occasion. But before he could finish speaking, his body gave out first. The dignified head of the Nangong family collapsed just like that at his own birthday banquet. No matter how the guards shouted, there was already no saving him. Nangong Xian stared fixedly at the woman before him. He never imagined that Tang Suhua would truly dare, under everyone's watchful eyes, to strike him dead. Tang Suhua looked at him. Did he really think he could wash away the blood on his hands just because he climbed to power through those shameful methods? An illegitimate son, with neither proper name nor rightful claim, should never have coveted a throne that did not belong to him from the very beginning. Tang Suhua slowly crouched down and softly called his name, as if comforting an old friend. This place should come to an end. You think you're clever. That's right, you are indeed a clever man. It was precisely because of that cleverness that you, as an illegitimate son, were able to climb to your current position and achieve what ordinary people would never even dare imagine. But after all your calculations, you missed the most crucial thing. Only now do you understand. For all these years, I have despised you from the bottom of my heart. When you were busy driving away your own brothers and taking the position of family head, when you destroyed the Tang clan while hypocritically keeping me by your side, did you think you had already controlled everything? In truth, for the past half year, the incense burning day and night in your study was the life-taking servant I gave you. It has hollowed out your body bit by bit from the bones. Until today, all it takes is this tiny drop of shadow to make every blood vessel in your body burst in an instant and make you die slowly in endless agony. For this moment, I endured far too long. Nangong Xian, I will take your life. With no martial arts and no backer, Tang Suhua could only use the darkest methods to complete this revenge. Looking at the man collapsed on the ground, she casually threw away the wine cup. Isn't this despicable method exactly what you are best at? Perhaps this is why we could become husband and wife, because deep down, we are actually the same kind of person. How pitiful. Tang Suhua could not even tell whether that mockery was aimed at him or at herself. She had thought revenge would be difficult, yet never expected it to end so easily. Since the accounts cannot be settled clearly in this life, then I will see you in hell. When the time comes, I will collect the rest of the debt. Who could have imagined that after personally destroying her enemy, this eldest daughter of the Tang clan had also chosen her own final destination? A pungent smell mixed into the wind. It was the scent of poison she knew best. In her ears, that long-lost form of a dress rang out again. Could it be that before dying, she had dreamed of returning to her homeland? When she opened her eyes, the person who should have vanished was actually sitting before her, complaining impatiently. He thought she was deliberately avoiding him. Hake, the Tang clan's young master, was also the younger brother she had longed for day and night. But 5 years ago, he had clearly met with an accident in Dujiang City and vanished from the world from then on. If this was not a dream, then what exactly was happening now? Looking at her younger brother before her, Tang Suhua's heart was filled with emotion. She had thought she would never see him again in this life. She never expected that this dream after death would fulfill her final regret. She softly said, "Long time no see." But Hake, opposite her, looked completely baffled. Didn't we just see each other this morning? Seeing his sister looking far too gentle, Hake only felt a chill run down his spine. He even suspected something was wrong with her head. After all, in his eyes, this kind and loving gaze was far more frightening than poison. Hake was panicking inside. He kept feeling that his sister was not quite right today. Usually at a time like this, she should have already thrown whatever was in her hand at him. Since she seemed to be in a good mood, Hake decided to boldly test her. "Sister, there is something I want to ask of you. As long as you ask, I will agree to anything." As soon as she said this, Hake froze completely. Had the sun risen from the west? He stammered. An eagle flew into the courtyard. Before he could finish speaking, Tang Suhua directly continued, "You want me to help treat it, don't you?" Hake could hardly believe it. His sister could actually predict the future. But how could he know that all of this was merely an old dream in Tang Suhua's memories? How could she possibly forget something that had already happened? Watching her younger brother leave happily, she knew very well in her heart that this dream would eventually end. Hake had been soft-hearted since childhood. Whenever he saw an injured little creature, he could never bring himself to ignore it. But the Tang Suhua of back then had refused his request because she found it troublesome. This became a knot in her heart that she could never untie for the rest of her life. If she had helped Hake that day, if she had cared a little more about her younger brother's thoughts, perhaps later he would not have run off to the Yangtze River alone, and perhaps he would not have lost his life in that accident. Since heaven had given her a chance to start over, she would definitely swallow this bitter medicine of regret. As she applied medicine to the eagle, she casually said, "Hake, did you know this eagle is actually a spiritual creature?" Hake was stunned, clearly not expecting his sister to say such a thing. And Tang Suhua knew very clearly that the first step to changing fate began with this eagle. How wonderful it would be if all of this were not a dream. Even if this truly was only an illusion, she still wanted to use all her strength to protect the things she had once lost. Looking at the younger brother before her, who had not yet met his end, this time, she would never let the tragedy repeat itself. She had not enjoyed the rare peace for long before Hake rushed in like a whirlwind. Seeing him acting so coquettish and ingratiating now, anyone would probably find it hard to refuse him. But the warmer this scene was, the more Tang Suhua felt something was wrong. Was this truly only a dream? Tang Suhua had only just called his name when Hake appeared with his army of land, sea, and air creatures. Looking at the way he was carrying them left and right, was he planning to open a zoo at home? This absurd scene had never happened in Tang Suhua's memories. Not only had this boy not gotten into trouble, he was instead sticking to her every day like glue. It seemed that from the moment she returned, the original fate had already been thrown completely into chaos. Even this bird circled around him and refused to leave, and it had even been named according to the Tang clan's direct line naming style. The more Tang Suhua thought about it, the more she felt something was wrong. Was this really just an ordinary dream? Until she looked down at her fingertip. That tiny wound was actually still there. This real pain was the best proof. None of this was an illusion. Tang Suhua suddenly slapped the table and stood up, badly frightening Hake beside her. The boy still looked bewildered as he asked where she was going. Tang Suhua did not explain much. She simply walked outside on her own. Since the pain was real, she had to face reality. She had truly returned to the year she was 17, back to the Sichuan Tang clan at its peak. Since heaven had given her a chance to start over, some debts had to be settled in advance. She pushed open the door. There were even more important things she needed to have someone handle. Sichuan 1 year later was simply hell on earth. The demonic cult ran rampant, and everywhere was filled with firelight and the smell of blood. To preserve the family, her father had even cast aside his dignity to seek help. But that despicable villain Nangong Xian, in order to protect himself, had actually shut her father, who had come from afar, outside the door. Tang Suhua would never forget this debt of refusing to save them. The Tang clan was now at the brink of life and death. Even a single hidden weapon or a single reinforcement had become a luxury. She absolutely could not sit and wait for death like this again. Even if she could not be of great help now, she had to take hidden weapons to defend herself. Tang Suhua could not care about anything else. She grabbed her gear and rushed outside. But who could have expected that as soon as she pushed open the door, she would run into a roadblock? The other party's tone was icy as she asked whether Tang Suhua thought bringing this little bit of equipment was enough. Tang Suhua looked closely and realized this woman was someone by Nangong Xian's side. Enemies truly met on a narrow road. Tang Suhua coldly spat out 2 words, "Move aside." The woman blocking the way was still chattering on, thinking that relying on a few hidden weapons was useless and that returning to Sichuan now was no different from suicide. But how could she know that Tang Suhua had never planned to come back alive at all? She calmly said she was going there to die. If she feared death, she would never have taken that step back then. That reckless momentum stunned the other woman. After a moment of silence, she suddenly made a shocking decision. She would take this certain death mission upon herself. She stuffed the letter requesting aid into Tang Suhua's hands and told this elder to contact the major sections. As for Sichuan, she would go in Tang Suhua's place to brave Manhwa, Wudong, and Zhongnan. These places were the Tang clan's final lifelines. The junior instructed that this letter must be delivered by hand. Nangong Xian must absolutely not be allowed to touch it. Never trust that man. This was the sternest warning. Tang Suhua knew how important this letter was. She also knew how dangerous that man was. But ironically, even if those famous orthodox sects later truly took action, Sichuan had already become scorched earth. The tragedy still could not be avoided. At exactly which step did things begin to go wrong? Was it the day they were expelled from the Wuling Alliance? Or when the family business collapsed? Or was it 5 years ago, the moment the old head of the Nangong family passed away? The orthodox heir was clearly still there, yet Nangong Xian suddenly became acting family head. No matter how one looked at it, this matter was neither proper nor legitimate. Only now did Tang Suhua realize that behind every tragedy that had happened over these years, there was an invisible black hand, and all the clues pointed to the same person. That man who spoke constantly of benevolence, righteousness, and morality had not a single word of truth in his mouth, only greed and schemes in his heart. He had once leaned close to Tang Suhua's ear and whispered that heaven had already abandoned the Tang clan. But what exactly did the heaven he spoke of refer to? Where exactly was the truth hidden? This time, Tang Suhua would definitely dig it out with her own hands. Tang Jihua put down his teacup and asked whether his daughter had already thought things through. Tang Suhu not dead. The first thing she wanted to do after returning this time was investigate the grievances between the two families. She probed by asking her father whether the Nangong family was suitable for a marriage alliance. In her previous life, she had disregarded everything to marry over and had never cared about her father's true thoughts. This time, she wanted to hear the truth. But unexpectedly, as soon as Tang Jihua heard the two words Nangong, his reaction was extremely intense. He seemed to be worried about something. Could there be a secret behind this marriage that even he found terrifying? As soon as Tang Jihua heard this, he exploded on the spot and shouted that it was absolutely impossible. Those brats of the Nangong family dared covet the Tang clan's precious daughter? The more he spoke, the angrier he became, and he insisted on asking exactly which one it was. He even shouted that he would rush out and break the other party's legs. Tang Suhua was completely dumbfounded. She had only wanted to test the relationship between the two families, but her father's protectiveness had completely exceeded her expectations. Now, she had not even found out the proper answer, and the scene was already about to spiral out of control. If this old father started making a fuss, he really would tear the roof off. Tang Jihua could not listen to anyone now and firmly refused to agree. Outside the main gate, Tang Suhua listened until she felt troubled. Still, this act had been fairly successful. Using those twin sisters as an excuse, she finally fooled her old father. It seemed she would have to give those two girls some reward money later. After all, being able to get away this time depended entirely on their little hobby. It turned out that her old father did not truly hate the Nangong family. Only in this life did Tang Suhua finally understand. The reason he was always so easily angered was actually because he protected his own more than anyone. Back then, when Hake disappeared by the river, everyone advised him to stop searching. But he stubbornly kept watch there for an entire year just to hold on to that faint hope. To him, his family was his life. At that time, Tang Suhua suffered endless cold treatment in the Nangong family, and even felt she had been completely forgotten. But just then, her old father sent someone to deliver a box to her. What was inside was not merely a few green robes. It was her old father reminding her that no matter what time it was, she would always be a member of the Tang family. The true killing move was actually hidden inside the clothing. It was a poison bone that sealed the throat upon seeing blood. This was the confidence her old father had given her. As long as she wanted to, she could take Nangong Xian's life at any time. Hake was still wandering around late at night, just to find that bird named Plum Blossom. His heart was full of muttering, afraid his old father would take the little creature away again. Fortunately, he finally found it in the room. However, Plum Blossom actually had a note on it. It looked like Tang Suhua had specially left it. This brother and sister were clearly doing something behind everyone's backs again. Hake opened the note and took a careful look. The nervousness from earlier instantly vanished. Who knew what his sister had written in it to make him smile so meaningfully? Hake originally wanted to pretend he had not seen it, but his own bird completely sold him out. Plum Blossom directly flipped out the note his sister had left, telling him to go immediately to Grand Elder Tang Min. Now things had truly gotten serious. In the Tang family, the name Tang Min was synonymous with terror. Not only was he a master whose strength was unfathomable, he was also an out-and-out lunatic. Outsiders only knew him as the awe-inspiring Black Heavenly Demon. But inside the Tang family, everyone was more used to calling him the Mad Green Dog. He was currently forcing Tang Suhua to compound poisons, the kind of brutal medicine that made one unable to live or die. Hake was completely numb now. In his heart, Tang Min was practically a monster. The shadow left from childhood had still not dispersed. Just thinking of that name made him feel cold air rising from the back of his neck. He simply could not understand how his sister Tang Suhua could get along with this kind of lunatic. In the past, his sister would not even obey the Grand Elder's orders. Now, she was actually taking the initiative to jump into that pit of fire. This was far too abnormal. What made Hake collapse even more was the thought of what would happen if Tang Min, that old lunatic, set his sights on Plum Blossom. That was his most precious spiritual bird. If it fell into Tang Min's hands, not even a feather would remain. No, he could not stay in this place for even one more second. Hake decided to take Plum Blossom and hurry back to his room, pretending he had never seen that note. As long as he hid fast enough, trouble would not find him. Hake originally wanted to take the bird and flee quickly, but Plum Blossom did not obey at all and flew directly in the direction of the Grand Elder. Now what he feared had truly come. At this time, Tang Suhua was waiting alone in the woods. She was still wondering why Hake had not arrived yet. They had clearly agreed to deal with the Grand Elder together. She had originally thought bringing Hake along might be somewhat useful. At least when persuading the Grand Elder, he could help say a few words. But now it seemed this coward was probably hiding somewhere again, not daring to show his face. The person Tang Suhua had been waiting for finally appeared. It was none other than Grand Elder Tang Min, who made people tremble at the mere mention of him. Looking across all the Central Plains, probably only she dared to summon this god of slaughter so openly. Tang Min was not angry at all. Instead, he found it rather interesting. After all, those who dared order him around had long since been dealt with. Now only Tang Suhua, this oddity, remained. After the greetings, Tang Min went straight to the point and asked why she had urgently called him here this time. He even deliberately leaned closer. Could it be that some trouble had appeared that even she could not handle? Tang Min, this old fox, had long seen through her. In one breath, he listed several reasons, asking whether Tang Suhua had caused trouble at home again, whether she wanted him, the Grand Elder, to act as her hired thug, or whether she simply wanted a follower who would not complain. Tang Suhua did not avoid the question at all. She directly said all of them. Her completely justified attitude instead made the scene somewhat comical. But jokes were jokes, and proper business still had to be handled. Tang Suhua suddenly put away her smile and asked whether the Grand Elder knew of the Yenzhou Theater troupe. Hearing those 4 words, the Grand Elder Tang Min immediately sensed something was wrong. That name reminded him of a legend. Could it be related to the person who disappeared 50 years ago? He probed Tang Suhua, asking whether she meant the legendary miracle Dr. Yanju, that extraordinary person who had once shaken the world but suddenly vanished half a century ago. Tang Suhua gave an affirmative answer. That's right, that miracle doctor. Legend says there is no illness in the world he cannot cure. Even more absurdly, as long as one eats the pill he refined, anyone can instantly become a peerless master. The child personally raised by miracle Dr. Yanju became an eternal pain in Nan Gongxian's heart. As if he had gone mad, he placed all blame on that woman. He roared that she had caused the child's death. If she had not sent the child on a battlefield, the tragedy would never have happened. Faced with such almost insane accusations, that woman merely listened in silence. Tang Suhua finally revealed her trump card. She asked whether the Grand Elder was willing to accompany her on a trip. There were actually clues to the miracle doctor's clinic, which had disappeared for 50 years. Tang Min never expected that this long-sealed secret would be personally uncovered by Tang Suhua. The clues were hidden in the secret letter Hake had brought back. The clouds and sunset halfway up Mount Amei sounded like a line of poetry, yet it made the atmosphere unusually solemn. Since a spiritual beast had been used to transmit the message, it meant this matter was absolutely not simple. Tang Min kept feeling something was not quite right. These words did not connect from beginning to end. There had to be a deeper meaning. This letter was not written for people to read at all. It was using words to draw a map. Tang Suhua concluded that the scenery in the drawing was the hiding place of the miracle doctor's clinic. Tang Min recognized it at a glance. It was the third peak of Mount Amei, but he still had doubts in his heart. What if it was only a hermit's residence? But the next discovery left him unable to refute her. On the bamboo tube carrying the message, there was actually the scent of musk and honey. This was clearly a trace left by a pharmacist. Musk paired with honey was definitely not a conventional pill refining method. Tang Suhua spoke with absolute certainty, saying this was precisely the unique secret recipe of the miracle doctor's clinic. Even if it is not the miracle doctor, if such a master is hidden on Mount Amei, as people of the Wuling Alliance, we must investigate clearly, right? But who could have imagined that all of this was made up by her? There was no bamboo tube and no secret letter at all. To trick Tang Min into going, she even dared to fabricate the medicinal ingredients. Looking at the silent Tang Min, she was about to run out of lies. This fellow was far too difficult to deal with. If she had known, she should have found someone easier to fool. Just as she planned to try again with another method, Tang Min suddenly spoke. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and follow." Tang Min felt they first had to persuade the family head, but he did not know how great a price was hidden behind this past event. Back then, that woman left behind a promise, saying she would risk her life to protect the Tang clan, but only begged for one excessive favor. If she did not return, that letter was to be given to the family head. That was the destination she had chosen for herself. The rosy clouds and sunset of Mount Amei became her final words. Once she went, she never came back. Before killing Nangong Xian, Tang Suhua had wanted to first pay respects to this life-saving benefactor. But while searching for her grave, she discovered a shocking secret. Nangong Xian had brought back a woman from Mount Amei and casually gave her the name Mista. It sounded rather affectionate, but in truth he had not put any thought into it at all. It was only because she came from the miracle doctor's clinic. This woman, raised as a tool, became one of the top 10 masters in the world. But in this life, she had always worked herself to death for Nangong Xian until she was completely burned out. That trip to Sichuan was probably the only time she acted on her own will. She did not die for Nangong Xian, but to save me. Mista, your life was far too short. This time, I will never let you repeat the same mistake. I will make you live for yourself. This is the debt I want to repay you. The waterway ahead was far too rapid. The sedan chair could no longer proceed at all. Tang Suhua could only get out of the carriage first. Hake, that boy, was quite enthusiastic. As soon as he saw an opportunity, he immediately crouched down and insisted on carrying his sister across the river. The little scheme in his heart was written all over his face. Just as he was happily fantasizing, Tang Min poured a bucket of cold water over him. "There's a boat right beside you, yet you insist on going into the water and walking. What exactly is stuffed inside that head of yours?" Seeing Hake acting so foolishly, Tang Min was furious. He even wanted to randomly grab someone from the prison to replace this useless thing. Someone like this should be pinned down in the council hall, with everyone joining in to let him know what society's beating feels like. Bark desperately stopped him from the side, saying that beating people violated clan rules. Looking at the two disasters beside her, Tang Suhua had only one thought in her heart. Why had she brought two such enormous burdens on this trip? Do you smell the medicinal scent drifting in the air? Tang Suhua knew very clearly in her heart that the place that had disappeared for 50 years had to be nearby. Since the smell of medicine was coming from here, the target definitely could not escape. She had been searching for that locust tree. Its blossoms were a good medicine for preventing strokes. It seemed that the old people in the clinic were indeed getting on in years, which was why they were so carefully maintaining their health. Land in front of that old locust tree. We're going to meet these old friends who have hidden for half their lives. They finally reached shore. But no matter how one looked at this forest, something was wrong. Tang Min saw the flaw at a glance. The smell of plants and trees had been planted far too deliberately. It was practically like someone had intentionally lit incense to cover up something shameful. This place was fake. Since someone wanted to play hide-and-seek, Tang Min had no patience for it. He directly struck a tree trunk with his palm. Since it was an illusion, then he would burn it clean with one fire. Before Tang Suhua could react, the entire forest had already fallen into a sea of flames. Let us see what tricks are hidden after this great fire burns everything away. Sure enough, just as Tang Min expected, this place looked calm on the surface, but was filled with killing intent everywhere. He saw through the truth at a glance. How was this traveling? We have clearly fallen into someone else's malicious formation. It seemed this forest was far more troublesome than imagined. Tang Min sensed something wrong. There was not the slightest smell of burning. That meant everyone was trapped inside the formation. Tang Suhua had never expected that a formation would be hidden in a place like this. Hake hurriedly asked for instructions on how to break it. After all, being stuck here forever was not a solution. But Tang Min had no intention of looking for an exit. Since it was a formation, he would burn it clean with one fire. Tang Suhua, however, began to worry. If they truly enraged the other side completely, she might never get to see Mista again. Just then, movement came from the grass. Tang Suhua was blocked outside the formation and could not clearly see what was happening inside. But that aura felt very familiar to her, as if she had seen it somewhere before. Before she could think it through, a figure suddenly attacked right in front of them. Tang Min stared fixedly at the girl before him, a trace of amusement in his tone. This little girl is quite fierce. It seemed the other party had no intention of letting him off. Tang Min told Suhua to hurry and step back. The short blade in his hand showed no mercy and directly sealed off the other party's retreat. The other party was forced back again and again before finally crashing heavily to the ground, looking extremely miserable. Tang Suhua looked closely. The girl before her was wearing ragged old clothes, and in her hand she clutched a rusty broken sword. She looked as if she had been picked up from a garbage heap. But this shabby appearance could not hide those clear eyes at all. Tang Suhua finally confirmed it. This was Mista, whom everyone had been searching for. Mista forced herself to stand and guarded the entrance firmly, warning them that they absolutely could not go in. Tang Min teased her with a relaxed expression, saying that the clinic's way of receiving guests was worth investigating. Mista immediately retorted that people who came to the door with weapons could not be considered guests at all. Unexpectedly, this girl had quite a sharp nose and could actually smell the poison on him. Tang Min signaled his subordinates to step back. He was going to personally deal with this little trouble. Tang Suhua hid in the dark and observed. The attendant beside her was extremely anxious, afraid the elder would be too heavy-handed. If he truly injured this girl, they would probably have no way to explain it to the clinic. But judging by Tang Min's current state, things were probably not that simple. Hake watched the distant battle and could not help asking the person beside him whether no one could stop Tang Min. The attendant helplessly shook his head and said no one could stop the elder now. They could only pray that he would stop soon. On the battlefield, Tang Min had completely gone mad with fighting. While wildly swinging his short blade, he provocatively taunted Mista and told her to put in more strength. Mista was suppressed so badly that she had no way to fight back, and the sword in her hand grew heavier and heavier. Tang Min let out a burst of wild laughter, mocking that her strength was almost exhausted. If this continued, Mista might lose her life here. This man's strength was far too powerful. The sword in Mista's hand was nearly shaken flying, but she gripped the hilt tightly and told herself she absolutely could not retreat. Following the momentum, she swung out a great sweeping strike. Sword energy suddenly erupted. Tang Min looked at the sharp move and felt somewhat surprised. This girl actually still had strength to counterattack. But Tang Min was not so easy to deal with. With a flash of his body, he easily dodged it and mocked her, saying the same move was useless against him. Mista ignored him completely and roared as she launched her final charge. Mista's full-powered strike was actually blocked easily by Tang Min. He had clearly already lost patience and angrily scolded this girl for not knowing what was good for her. Tang Min suddenly stopped and questioned her, suspecting that she had secretly learned martial arts from the Kunlun sect. After all, such movement technique was absolutely not something an ordinary person could know. But Mista looked completely frank and said she had never learned from anyone. These words left Tang Min completely frozen. Could it be that she had only seen it once and directly copied the Kunlun sect's ultimate skill? Mista instead found it baffling. Was this not something anyone could do? Hearing this answer, Tang Min first fell silent, then erupted into a burst of crazed laughter. Far away, Tang Suhua felt a chill run down her spine. She realized that the girl before her was simply a monster. Tang Min's gaze had now changed completely. Everyone watching could tell that Tang Min intended to get serious. He wanted to see whether this girl could also learn his hidden ultimate killing move. Faced with this sudden attack, Mista was almost forced into a dead end. She desperately swung out one sword strike, trying to find a sliver of life under the heavy pressure. No one expected that this strike would truly cut through the corner of Tang Min's clothing. Looking at the torn scrap nailed to the tree, Tang Min not only was not angry, he laughed even more madly. Since you say you can learn without being taught, then let me see where your limit truly is. Tang Min finally tore off his disguise completely. This terrifying pressure meant he had already used his true inner force. Hake watched from the side with his spine turning cold. Things were developing in the worst possible direction. Before everyone could react, Tang Suhua actually spat out a mouthful of blood. The scene instantly fell into chaos. Hake cried like a child, holding his sister and shouting, even starting to blame her for not listening to father. Tang Suhua helplessly wiped away the bloodstain and instead first apologized to Mista. It turned out this was not some murderous demon at all, but merely a frail, noble young lady accompanied by a group of overly nervous bodyguards. This misunderstanding had truly grown huge. Mista was now so regretful her guts had turned green. Just now, she had thought the other person was a murderous demon, only to learn that the other side was merely a patient seeking treatment. Tang Suhua explained that to enter the valley smoothly, she had deliberately switched to a carriage. Who could have expected that this noble young lady was so ruthless? To make her symptoms look more real, she had secretly bitten her own tongue and pretended to vomit blood. This acting skill could practically win Best Actress. Seeing her weak appearance as she held the blood-stained handkerchief, Mista's heart was full of guilt. She even began to suspect whether she was too cold-blooded. How was this an enemy? This was clearly a weak woman on the verge of breathing her last. But when Mista probed with one question, Hake beside her immediately exploded. Seeing his sister injured like this and still being doubted, he almost wanted to fight someone on the spot. Hake truly had an impatient temper. To defend his sister, he actually let the family name slip. Si Juntang Kulan. The moment those 4 words came out, Mista froze completely. Tang Min was so angry that he directly grabbed him. He had warned them over and over to hide their identity, yet everything was ruined by this pig teammate. Seeing Hake's face being pinched as he begged for mercy, who could have imagined that their background was so great? Mista could hardly believe her ears. They were the ancestors of poison and hidden weapons. In the Central Plains, no one dared provoke them. There was even a saying in the martial world, never offend people dressed in green. Looking at the 2 siblings in green robes before her, Mista finally realized exactly what kind of divine figure she had run into this time. Mista's overly enthusiastic appearance made Tang Suhua mutter inwardly. What was wrong with this girl? She seemed like a completely different person. In her memories, Mista was absolutely not this kind of person. Tang Suhua's thoughts instantly returned to many years ago. At that time, she had only recently married Nangong Xian. It was also then that she first heard of Mista's existence. At the time, the Nangong family was in utter turmoil over the matter of the heir. The elders were furious. Tang Suhua was taking a walk to clear her mind while worrying about her family when she unexpectedly ran into a secret in the garden. She stopped and looked at the 2 figures speaking not far away. In Tang Suhua's memory, Mista had always been expressionless. She would even coldly draw a clear line, saying she had no private feelings for the family head. That way of keeping people 1,000 miles away made her seem like a soulless puppet. But looking at this girl before her, smiling until her face bloomed, Tang Suhua began to completely doubt her life. So she could also show such a radiant smile? What kind of change could forcibly turn a bright and cheerful girl into the future murderous maniac? Seeing Mista busily leading the way, Tang Min suddenly asked her name. Although the girl was confused when she heard it, Tang Suhua already had an idea in her heart. What her name was no longer mattered, because from this moment on, she had decided to completely intervene in this matter. No matter what happened in the future, she would protect Mista's current smile. She would absolutely not let her become that cold-blooded monster. Tang Suhua had just been about to call her Mista when the girl hurriedly corrected her, saying her current name was Point 7. Only then did Tang Suhua react. So the pleasant name Mista was later given to her by Nangong Xian. Looking at this painfully rustic name before her, Tang Suhua felt speechless. This name did not match her aura at all. But before she could finish complaining inwardly, Point 7 suddenly asked whether they had brought carrier pigeons and even suggested they quickly contact home for reinforcements. As soon as these words came out, Tang Suhua froze. Why would they need to call reinforcements for no reason? Could there be danger ahead? Point 7 hurriedly waved her hands and said she had overthought it, telling everyone not to take it to heart. But the more she explained like this, the more Tang Suhua felt something was wrong. This girl was clearly hiding something. Could she have long foreseen that something serious would happen on the road ahead? Point 7 moved very quickly, and the formation was undone at once. She pointed at the cave ahead and urged everyone, saying this place would seal shut again in 7 minutes, and they had to hurry through. After passing through the dark cave, the view before them suddenly brightened. This was the legendary clinic. Tang Suhua looked at the buildings in the valley and felt this place was no different from an ordinary village. But before everyone could relax their vigilance, Tang Min suddenly leaned over. He said guests had already arrived here first. It seemed this journey to seek the doctor was destined not to be peaceful. So these were the people of the Sichuan Tang clan. The atmosphere inside the room changed at once. But Tang Suhua was different from others. She could smell the unusual aura on people. This was a talent no one could imitate. Ordinary people's inner force smelled to her like a faint fragrance. If the other party was circulating their power, she could even feel that scorching heat. But just now, on that woman, she had seen a sight she had never seen before. That inner force was no longer a scent or a temperature. It was a light as dazzling as the sun, as if it were about to set the entire earth ablaze. Who exactly was this woman? Nangong Xian said she did not know martial arts at all, but I personally saw the energy inside her body. It was simply more terrifying than any master. Looking at the people before her again, although their auras were still fairly natural compared to a monster like Nangong Xian, they were simply ordinary beyond ordinary. Tang Suhua was walking when she suddenly felt a cold aura. Immediately afterward, an old man came close and opened by asking whether someone here was ill. Tang Min muttered quietly beside her, "This old man's lie is far too half-hearted. He is clearly coming straight for us." But this old man had no intention of continuing the act. He stared fixedly at Tang Suhua, his tone becoming very certain. He said that by his judgment, Tang Suhua had no illness at all. Now there was big trouble. Their disguise had actually been exposed on the spot. Tang Suhua was now caught between advancing and retreating. After all, once pretending to be sick was exposed in public, the next act could no longer continue. Since she had been exposed in public, Tang Suhua simply stopped pretending. She admitted that pretending to be sick was only to lower the other party's guard. If she had known this family was so hospitable, she would not have gone to all this trouble. Tang Min saw things very clearly. Since the disguise had been seen through at a glance, it meant this old man was definitely an expert. He directly asked about the other party's origins. Both sides formally announced their names. The old man called himself Jinja, and Tang Min also revealed his identity. Since everything had been spoken openly, Jinja politely invited everyone inside for tea. Tang Min took the lead and followed, but he had not yet realized that this tea would probably not be easy to drink. The instant they entered the house, the people outside were secretly ordered to quickly call reinforcements before the formation closed. Now the trouble was great. Just as she entered the courtyard, Tang Suhua smelled a pungent scent of blood. This small clinic had only a few patients in total, so how could there be such a heavy stench of blood? Although she had already become vigilant inside, she still had to play her part on the surface. The old man Jean politely invited them to drink tea. Tang Suhua praised the fragrance of the tea while calculating the other parties. Background. Jean smiled with a kindly face and said this was good tea, specially used to entertain honored guests. But the more it was like this, the more it made one's heart feel uneasy. Was there something wrong with this cup of tea? And what scheme was this old man plotting? Looking at the smoking cauldron in the courtyard, Tang Min thought this old man was secretly brewing strong liquor. But the man explained that it was used for disinfection. This old man spoke of medical principles in a very systematic way, saying that people's hands were covered in invisible poisons and had to be washed clean before treating wounds. Tang Min was also surprisingly careless and actually wanted to taste what this disinfectant water was like. Furious, Tang Suhua directly punched him. "What time is this? And you still want to drink?" Jean smiled and did not mind it. He turned and sent point 7 to change a patient's dressing. Once the little girl left, he took the initiative to offer to show everyone around and let them see the tools the clinic usually used. The more polite this old man acted, the more it made people feel something was wrong. What exactly did he want to show these to? Could the real secret be hidden in the back room? When they entered the room, Tang Suhua discovered that it was frighteningly tidy. It could practically compare with the Tang clan's own pharmacy. Just as she was looking around, an unexpected thing appeared. It was actually a living 7-step snake. This kind of venomous snake could kill a person before they finished taking 7 steps after being bitten. It was an extremely difficult, rare, medicinal ingredient to handle. Unexpectedly, this tiny clinic actually had stock. Jinja explained beside them that he had gone to great effort to obtain this treasure. It seemed the clinic's connections were broader than imagined, since they could even get their hands on such scarce goods. Immediately afterward, Jinja took out another leather roll. Inside was a neat row of strange tools. He said these were all personally made by the miracle doctor. Looking at these delicate little items, Tang Suhua kept feeling they looked like children's toys. But one must not underestimate these shiny blades. Every one of them had been stained with the blood of countless people. Why exactly had this old man displayed these things? Was it to save people or to do something else? Jinja pointed at those delicate knives and said they were all used to cut open flesh and stitch wounds. It seemed the rumors were true. That miracle doctor had indeed mastered the medical art of cutting open the body. Such methods were simply unheard of in the Central Plains. Mentioning that miracle doctor, Jinja's thoughts instantly returned to decades ago. He said that woman not only had strange medical skills, but her entire person also seemed like an outsider who did not belong here. Their first meeting was on Mount Amay. At that time, the miracle doctor was wearing a strange set of white clothes and speaking words no one could understand. Jinja was completely stunned at the time. He even suspected he had encountered a fairy descended to the mortal world. Later, Jinja taught her to read and write, and in exchange, the miracle doctor shared knowledge that had never existed in the Central Plains. This was practically a transaction that crossed the boundaries of understanding. The miracle doctor was frighteningly intelligent. Before long, she learned the writing here and even opened her own clinic in the Central Plains. But as soon as her reputation rose, trouble came. People outside all spread rumors that she was conducting experiments on living people, frightening those around her until the way they looked at her changed. Jinja explained that using knives was indeed true, but it was to save lives. The things used for practice were all models needed from dough. But rumors and gossip were things that could not be explained clearly at all. To avoid the storm, they could only move back to Mount Amay, where they had first met. They practiced medicine while waiting for her to return. Tang Suhua could not help asking what happened afterward. Did she not come back with you? Jinja sighed and said she vanished from the world one day, just as suddenly as she had appeared. She left behind only one sentence, saying she wanted to return to her hometown. But no one knew where her hometown was. Halfway through the story, just as Tang Suhua wanted to ask more, Jinja seized the conversation first. He stared at these uninvited guests. He directly asked what purpose the people of the Tang clan had in coming here. Tang Min had no intention of hiding anything either. He said straightforwardly that they had come for the rumored mist pill and also to see whether the medical skills here were truly as miraculous as the legends claim. But Jinja's next words were like a basin of cold water poured over their heads. He said this pill was not some miraculous panacea at all. It was merely used according to the patient's condition to clear impurities from the body. Hake listened in complete confusion. After all, the rumors in the martial world described it as divine. Jinja explained that this medicine could only clear the meridians and allow the circulation of energy to run a little more smoothly. If they wanted to rely on it to directly increase their power, then they had probably come to the wrong place. As Jinja tidied things up, he added a warning, saying that these medical arts looked simple, but in reality, one had to spend an entire lifetime studying them. With the temperaments of these people now, they probably did not have the patience to learn them. Jinja suddenly brought out a thick stack of books and said these were all the clinic's most treasured medical texts, telling the people of the Tang clan to take them directly. Tang Min was completely stunned. This was the foundation of their livelihood. If the books were gone, how would this clinic continue to operate in the future? Jinja, however, appeared very calm. He said the clinic now only had him and point 0.7 left. He already knew everything in the books by heart, so giving them away was no great matter. But immediately afterward, he raised a condition. He wanted the Tang clan to take point 0.7 away as well. Looking at point 0.7's innocent and lively appearance, Tang Suhua sensed that something was wrong. How was this giving her away? This was clearly arranging his affairs before death. He did not even want the tools of his trade anymore. Could this old man be planning to personally dissolve this clinic completely? Tang Min fiddled with the medical instruments in his hand, and the more he looked, the more familiar they seemed. Although they were tools used to save lives, in the eyes of an expert, they were clearly throwing knives with extremely strong killing power. No wonder that woman was so proficient with hidden weapons. It turned out what she usually practiced was this kind of ruthless move. Before he could figure it out, an attendant approached with a serious expression. But before the words could be spoken, a violent explosion suddenly came from outside. The entire clinic was shaken until it nearly collapsed. Someone actually dared to bring people to surround this place at such a time. Tang Min immediately entered combat mode. He stared fixedly in the direction of the main gate, with only one thought in his heart. What exactly was the background of these uninvited guests? The clinic was now completely surrounded. These people were all masked, so their origins could not be seen at all, but they were absolutely not good people. This time, the other side had come to wipe them out. They were now frantically searching for the gaps in the formation. There was not much time left for everyone. There were over 100 people in total. Fighting head-on would be suicide. Tang Min made a decisive call. They had to immediately retreat down the mountain. Only then did he realize why Jinja was so eager to send Mista away. It was to preserve her life. If she had not gone to Manhwa back then, the clinic would probably have been wiped out long ago. As the sole survivor, Mista always believed Nangong Xian had saved her life, which was why she became utterly devoted to him. But the more Tang Suhua thought about it, the more she felt something was wrong. Nangong Xian had clearly been handling business in Anhui at the time. How could he possibly have instantly appeared in Sichuan to save someone? Unless the person who saved her was not him at all. Tang Suhua suddenly stared hard at Hake beside her. A few days ago, did you meet Nangong Jin? It was right near that merchant caravan. Hake stammered and admitted it. Tang Suhua was completely furious now. He had actually kept such important information hidden all this time. Nangong Xian was only 16 this year. No matter how much of a genius he was, there was no way he could have rescued Mista from over 100 assassins. The one who truly could have won that bloody battle had to be someone high up in the Wuling Alliance, and someone capable of escorting her all the way to Anhui without anyone noticing. Tang Suhua finally saw through the truth. From beginning to end, the person who saved her was not Nangong Xian. It was someone else. Tang Min was still worried about the clinic's safety, but Tang Suhua suddenly said that Nangong Jin of the Nangong family was about to arrive. Tang Min was stunned when he heard this. What exactly was going on? The Nangong family held enormous influence in Anhui. If they wanted to find something, there was nothing they could not dig up. They had followed the medicinal herb business all the way to Sichuan. Tang Suhua had confirmed with a doctor that the clinic was indeed trading a rare snake medicine. The Nangong family had used that clue to lock onto the clinic's location. It It was only a matter of time before they came knocking. But what worried Tang Suhua most was Nangong Jin's movements. According to the rules, anyone from the Wuling Alliance who crossed regions to mobilize armed forces had to give notice in advance. Yet Tang Min's father, as the person in charge of Sichuan, knew nothing about it. Nangong Jin had secretly infiltrated with a large force. There had to be some rotten scheme behind this. The other side had come with hostile intentions. Either they had their eyes on the Tang clan's secret business, or they wanted to dump all the blame on the Tang clan. This was no longer as simple as snatching a child. If they ignored the people at the clinic now, those bastards would only end up reaping the benefits. But Tang Min knew very well that reinforcement from home would take 2 hours to arrive on horseback. Forcing a head-on clash now would be pure suicide. He could not gamble with everyone's lives. So he immediately ordered the deputy captain to lead the others away. They were to escort the child and the clinic's people down the mountain first, then meet up with Injun. Hake looked at him like that and asked what he was planning to do. Without looking back, Tang Min left only one sentence. "You go first. Once I settle things here, I'll catch up." Hake desperately tried to stop him. He felt that if Tang Min stayed behind alone, he would be throwing his life away. Even if he was an elder, facing so many enemies was too much of a stretch. He urged him to withdraw with the main group. Tang Min had no intention of listening. He simply told him to shut up and hurry up with the others. He turned and asked Tang Suhua whether there was any other method besides facing them head-on. Tang Suhua, however, was very calm. She proposed the most ruthless plan. They might as well burn the whole place down. Since they could not take it with them, no one else should dream of getting it either. The Nangong family's people finally lost patience. At the leader's order, a large group of experts charged straight into the woods. They thought victory was in their hands, but they failed to notice that a strange smell had appeared in the air. Those were not medicine chests at all, but deadly poison smoke. Before those people could even react, the ones charging at the front had already begun vomiting blood and collapsing. They could not even scream. The leader panicked completely. He never expected that there would be such a poison expert in the opposing camp. He hurriedly ordered his men to hold their breath, but only realizing they had fallen into a trap now was already far too late. After a long blaze, the place had been burned into ruins. The Nangong family's people were running around like headless flies, shouting that they would search every corner. But they still had not realized that they had long since become someone else's prey. Screams rose one after another in the firelight. Before those people could react, their companions' blood had already splattered across their faces. This invisible terror threw them completely into chaos. Just then, a cold voice came out of the smoke. "You are even more useless than I imagined." Tang Min stood quietly amid the sea of fire, as if watching a swarm of ants struggling before death. The leader suddenly turned back. The moment he saw that face clearly, all his arrogance from moments ago vanished. Do not be fooled by the poison smoke earlier. It was only a decoy to distract them. The true killing move had only just revealed itself. Tang Min stood suspended in midair, surrounded by purple streams of light ready to strike. The enemies finally recognized him. He was the legendary Dark Heaven Hidden Demon. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the Nangong family's elites had fallen. The once mighty group now had only 9 survivors left. The leader had not yet recovered from his shock when Tang Min appeared before him like a ghost. "You still dare to lose focus at a time like this?" With a cold laugh, he drove a short blade into the man's chest. His movement was so fast it was impossible to see. Blood splashed across the ground. The leader realized that he had nowhere left to retreat. Since death awaited him either way, this man truly intended to risk everything. A terrifying red aura exploded outward in an instant, overturning everything nearby. Tang Min had not expected the other party to still be hiding something. This was a move meant to drag them both down together. It was not ordinary internal force at all. It was practically burning away his very life. Looking at those eyes filled with murderous energy, this man was about to lose control completely. Those eyes were wrong. To increase his power, he had actually drained even his own people's blood energy dry. Such insane methods could only belong to the blood cult, which had disappeared for decades. Tang Min never imagined that these lunatics, who should have been wiped out, would reappear in the martial world for the sake of a few patients. What exactly were they plotting? The other man looked at the stunned Tang Min, his tone full of mockery. "Why are you making that face?" Tang Min's strike carried tremendous pressure. Even his opponent could not help inwardly sighing that an expert from a prestigious family was indeed difficult to deal with. Seeing that the other party's identity was strange, Tang Min did not want to drag things out any longer. He directly flung out hidden weapons, sealing off every path of retreat. But such tricks were not enough to trouble the other man. As he blocked the attacks, he sneered. "Did you think I would not even remember this?" Before he could react, Tang Min vanished into thin air. Now things were truly bad. A figure flashed, and Tang Min circled directly behind his opponent. With this sword strike, the other party had no chance to react. Looking at Tang Min before him, the man realized he had kicked an iron plate. It turned out that in their earlier exchange, Tang Min had not used his full strength at all. "Since you dare to barge in here, you should have expected this outcome." Tang Min's tone was icy, and the surrounding air seemed to freeze. Countless hidden weapons floated in midair, sealing every path of retreat. "Be glad you met me. If it were someone else, you would only die in even more pain." The mission had completely failed, and even his identity could no longer be hidden. Facing a monster of this level, he had no room to fight back. The man who had been cornered moments ago suddenly burst into mad laughter. Tang Min immediately sensed that something was wrong. There was a scheme hidden in that laughter. "You still have the leisure to waste time with me here?" The other man's tone was filled with malice. "I heard a woman took 3 children down the mountain. Are you not worried at all?" Hearing this, Tang Min's heart lurched. Those were the people he cared about most. The other party had clearly come prepared. "Consider yourself lucky today." Taking advantage of Tang Min's moment of distraction, the man pulled away and fled, disappearing into the night. It seemed the true crisis was not here at all. That blood cult man had finally managed to save his life. He was already at his limit. If he had left even one step later, he likely would have died there. He had to hurry and send the news back. This matter was even more troublesome than imagined. Meanwhile, the Tang family's people were desperately hurrying through the woods. The wounded were in bad condition, so everyone could only withdraw up the mountain first. Point 7 was full of worry and could not help asking her sister whether the elder could really return safely. Although Tang Suhua gave a firm answer, her silent expression clearly showed that she was worried something even worse would happen. Point 7, pack your things and leave. The moment she heard those words, she knew the day of parting had arrived. Their former companions had all gone down the mountain one after another, changing their names and looking for their own paths. But she never expected that she would leave in this way. If she left just like this, the clinic would truly be finished. She could not accept it. "I'm not leaving. I want to stay and guard this place." Even if she were the only one left, the name of the Sichuan Tang clan resounded across the land. Perhaps only by asking them for help would the clinic have a slim chance of survival. A prestigious great sect like the Tang clan would never understand a small clinic like ours. Though we are not related by blood, we have long treated one another as our lives. Why would they risk themselves for us? Point 7 knew very clearly that the gap in status was right there. She did not want to beg those people standing high above them, and even less did she want the clinic to lose its last bit of dignity. In truth, more than anyone, she wanted to kneel and beg for help. But once she knelt, what would be lost was the dignity of the entire clinic. It would also be an insult to the pride her grandfather had upheld all his life. She had already prepared for the worst. Even if she were the only one left, she would defend this place to the death and never bow her head to anyone. But just as she was preparing to die heroically, Tang Suhua suddenly spoke. "Who said we were abandoning the clinic?" That sentence left Point 7 completely at a loss. Although it sounded a little unbelievable, Tang Suhua had indeed been moved by Point 7's resolve. She made a promise in front of everyone. She would protect the clinic. No one had expected that she would truly lead everyone from the clinic out safely. Point 7 looked at her back, her heart full of admiration. They were clearly of similar age. Yet Tang Suhua was like an adult capable of holding up the sky. Point 7 began to grow curious about the Tang clan. What kind of place was it exactly? But before she could figure it out, an attendant brought back a deadly piece of news. More than 30 people were waiting ahead to ambush them, and these people had powerful backing. Even the elder had suffered at their hands. The situation instantly became extremely tense. They had to change routes and flee for their lives at once. If they were even one step too slow, they might be wiped out. The internal force of those 30 people was absurdly weak, to the point that even their auras were hard to detect, and that smell was simply nauseating. Small fry of this level could not possibly be the true culprit who had injured the elder. The attendant suddenly reminded her in a low voice that the enemy had already discovered the escape route they opened. The situation instantly turned passive. Tang Suhua was regretting not bringing enough poison powder when a bone-chilling cold suddenly swept over her. This was not the aura of those people from earlier at all. The true monsters had appeared. These people were like lingering ghosts. Tang Suhua looked around and discovered that she had been completely surrounded. Their entire bodies glowed with an eerie blue light, and even their eyes were filled with the aura of death. Tang Suhua sensed something wrong with her body. This was not the vibration of meridians being broken through, but more like countless poisonous insects drilling wildly through her blood vessels. Before she could understand what was happening, a rain of arrows fell from the sky. The guards immediately swung their swords to block them. No wonder that group had suddenly stopped earlier. It turned out the real killing move was here. These people had actually hidden archers as well. The guard told Tang Suhua to stay where she was, then turned and charged into the woods. But Tang Suhua had no attention to spare for those assassins, because that strange smell had appeared again. Just as she froze, Yin Qi suddenly appeared behind her. The promise to protect her rang out once more. She had thought she could live differently in this life, yet in the end, she had still returned to the old path. Although that cold aura was fading, Tang Suhua knew very well that the secret hidden in this forest was far more terrifying than the slaughter before her eyes. She had thought this ambush was nearly over, but no one expected the situation to change so quickly. The Tang family's elite guards fell one after another, not even knowing what kind of attack had struck them. One wounded man desperately squeezed out the word poison. Tang Suhua froze when she heard it. The Tang family was the ancestor of poison arts. For its own elites to be poisoned was an utter humiliation. Tang Suhua had no time to think. She immediately rushed over to stabilize the wounded man's condition. She had to identify the poison in the shortest possible time. If even she was helpless, these lives would all be lost here today. Seeing blood seeping from the corner of Tang Suhua's mouth, the attendant panicked completely. His cry of "Miss" was heart-wrenching because everyone could see that this poison was anything but ordinary. The toxin spread far faster than imagined. Her sense of taste was disappearing, and her internal organs were rapidly hardening. This was not ordinary paralytic poison. It was meant to kill. If it were an ordinary expert, they would have died here already. But who could have expected that this body would actually refuse death? Her organs, which had nearly burst apart, suddenly relaxed. That deadly toxin was completely erased by a power deep within her body. The feeling was too strange. It was as if the poison had never appeared at all. Tang Suhua carefully examined the wound. As expected, she had guessed correctly. This poison was exactly the same as the one she had encountered before. This was the legendary blazing fire herb poison. As the name suggested, someone afflicted by it would feel as if they were being burned from the inside out by raging flames. It was a mixture of heartbreak grass and throat-sealing tree sap, and its toxicity was extremely tyrannical. The most sinister part of this poison was that it caused paralysis and rotting at the same time. If one treated the paralysis first, the wound would rot even faster. Fortunately, she saw through its trick. Jinzhou was frantic and said the wounded man had internal bleeding and had to be taken back for surgery immediately. But Tang Suhua flatly refused. Turning back now would be walking straight into a trap. Saving a few people at the cost of everyone's lives was a price no one could bear. Looking at the severely wounded guards on the ground, Tang Suhua felt terrible too. But the Black Tiger Squad's rules were absolute. Protecting the direct bloodline was the top priority. He had no way to say they should retreat. Tang Suhua understood better than anyone what it felt like to be crushed by rules. Jinja took out an antidote that could stop the poison. Although it could temporarily preserve life, it was only buying time from the King of Hell. Even an expert with deep internal strength would not last long. Tang Suhua looked at the attendant's restrained expression and had already made a decision. She turned and called Hake, asking him for the hateful giant gallbladder. Hake froze completely. That was his most precious trump card. But Tang Suhua's tone left no room for doubt. She directly told him to hand over the medicine. After Jinja confirmed that this could save the man's life, Tang Suhua did not hesitate in the slightest. She directly fed that precious giant gallbladder pill into the mouth of the severely wounded brother. Even Jean was stunned. Such a priceless treasure, and she gave it away just like that. Saving lives came first. She immediately called the attendants over and issued orders telling everyone to cooperate with internal energy treatment. They had to guide true qi to dissolve the medicine's power. The attendants did not dare delay in the slightest. Every second now was a race against death. After settling the wounded, Tang Suhua turned and gave Jean a promise. As soon as the elder arrived, they would immediately bring everyone back to the clinic's original site. Jean was completely won over by her sense of responsibility and solemnly swore on the spot that even if he had to risk his reputation, he would protect these people's lives. After all, the enemy this time was too vicious. They had actually used blazing fire herb poison. If not for Tang Suhua's decisive action, this small squad would probably have been wiped out already. The road ahead would only become harder. This poison had actually come from the Tang clan's secret teachings. That meant the family's core secrets had leaked outside. There was definitely a traitor inside the Tang clan. The more Tang Suhua thought about it, the more her spine chilled. The enemy had deliberately used such an extreme poison precisely to leave traces of the Tang clan behind, so that the Nangong family would lay this blood debt entirely on the Tang clan. This was a carefully planned frame-up. Even stranger, the Nangong family had not asked the Tang clan for help. Instead, they had directly charged here. It seemed they had already completely fallen into the trap. The misunderstanding between the two families had now truly grown serious. Tang Suhua decided to stay and wait for the other side to show themselves. She wanted to expose the conspiracy behind all this in public. But the guard beside her was nearly frantic. The mountain was full of killing intent now. They had to leave at once and rendezvous with the elder. If they stayed any longer, perhaps no one would be able to leave. Could they avoid trouble just by going down the mountain? Tang Suhua had no confidence in that at all. After all, the people of the Anhui branch had kept their information tightly sealed from beginning to end. It was obvious they wanted to watch them make fools of themselves. The feeling of being stabbed in the back by their own side was truly stifling. Tang Suhua had no intention of running away. She wanted to personally demand an explanation. Whether this had been ordered by Wuling Alliance headquarters or was the Anhui branch acting on its own, this debt had to be settled clearly. Whoever dared play tricks behind the scenes had better be prepared to pay the price. She even directly used the Nangong family as a shield. If something happened to them here, the Nangong family would never let it go. This move of borrowing another's strength was truly ruthless. Sure enough, it made the people hiding in the dark unable to sit still. Just then, a disgusting smell drifted through the air. It was an aura she had endured for a full 5 years. Although the other party was doing his utmost to hide his tracks, in her eyes, he had nowhere to hide. These people truly could keep their composure. In the silence, Tang Suhua sensed killing intent. The other party was clearly not here for the elder, but specifically for her. Since she could not avoid this deadly enemy, she would turn this crisis into a chance to reverse the situation. Her choice in this moment would decide everyone's life or death. She directly poured poison into her palm. As long as she could endure the poison's outbreak, it was still uncertain who would win this round. The only thing she had to do now was avoid being wounded by the enemy in battle. The true contest had only just begun. Even if she was injured, she had to endure it by force. Tang Suhua knew very well that she absolutely could not let the other party discover her ability to heal herself. This life-saving trump card could not be revealed unless there was no other choice. The guard charged out at this moment and told Tang Suhua to hurry and step back, unaware that the opponent before them was not someone who could be handled by brute force. The closer they got, the more real that pressure became. Tang Suhua saw the difference between the two sides clearly. With only these few people, they would probably not get through this crisis today. These people were not human at all. Tang Suhua noticed a clue. They were crazily overdrawing their internal force, yet showed no sign of exhaustion. They were simply a group of tireless monsters. Although there were fewer of them than expected, every single one was absurdly strong. She carefully counted them. 8, 9. No, there was still one hidden in the shadows. That person had not shown himself all along. Just when everyone thought they had seen the situation clearly, the real killing move had already arrived behind them. The other party's movements were as fast as a ghost. This style of fighting, which completely ignored defense, left no chance to counterattack. Tang Suhua finally saw the clue from below. That violent and chaotic fluctuation of internal force was clearly the long-vanished blood cult's forbidden art. These people were trading their lives for combat strength. They forcibly poured other people's internal force into their bodies. Although they could instantly obtain terrifying power, the price was that every meridian in their bodies would be stretched to bursting. This was not fighting at all. It was suicide. No wonder their eyes were filled with death. Damn it. These lunatics had never intended to leave this forest alive from the very beginning. The real trouble had only just begun. Before they could catch their breath, the assassins charged again like mad dogs. Tang Suhua had no intention of gambling. She raised her hand and delivered a heavy strike, instantly leaving a bloody gash on the other party's body. Strangely, the man who had just been risking his life actually stopped because of that small wound. It seemed that although these death warriors were not afraid of death, they alone were extremely wary of poison. How ironic. Since she had found their weakness, things became easier. As long as she could make them hesitate for even 1 second, that was enough for Tang Suhua. Poison needles filled the sky, sealing every path of retreat and forcing the opponent to dodge in a sorry state. The rhythm finally returned to her hands. The assassin's saber technique was so fast it dazzled the eyes. Although Tang Suhua reacted extremely quickly, every direct clash made her arms go numb. The other party sneered and praised her skills, but only she herself knew that the situation had already become terrible. The toxin was rapidly spreading through her wound, and her strength was draining away bit by bit. At this life-or-death moment, Mista screamed and rushed over. This sudden variable made the assassin's movements pause sharply. Although she wanted to save someone, she instead made the situation even more chaotic. Tang Suhua was truly in danger now. The toxin spread even faster than imagined. Both her hands had completely turned purple, and she had even lost all feeling in them. Waiting helplessly for death was definitely not her style. Since she could not wait for her body to recover, she could only risk her life for a chance. Enduring the numbness, she flung out hidden weapons and launched the final charge on her own initiative. This desperate fighting style actually forced the assassin back for a time. Their weapons collided, sparks flying like arrows. Neither side was willing to retreat even half a step. But in the end, her body's reactions could not keep up with her will. The instant her arms stiffened, her movement clearly slowed by half a beat. The other party had already spotted this fatal opening. Now she was truly in danger. The toxin finally erupted completely. Tang Suhua was thrown heavily away. Hake and Mista shouted anxiously. A powerful and unfamiliar aura suddenly descended. This internal force was unfathomably deep. The one who had come was the young master of the Nangong family, Nangong Xian. As the descendant of a prestigious family, he carried tremendous pressure the moment he appeared. Tang Suhua saw it clearly from the side. This man used only one move to instantly knock down 2 experts. Such strength absolutely could not be underestimated. It was even more terrifying than the rumors. Nangong Xian smiled and ordered them to capture the enemies alive. Then he slowly walked up to Tang Suhua. Although his tone still sounded fairly polite, his eyes were full of unquestionable authority. He wanted to know why people of the Tang family had appeared here. Faced with Tang Suhua's counter-question, Nangong Xian acted quite courteous. He smiled and said that it was because he had not considered things carefully enough that the misunderstanding just now had occurred, and he hoped everyone would be magnanimous. But in Tang Suhua's eyes, this affected apology was hypocritical to the extreme. This man said he was sorry, but his tone was full of condescending arrogance. He did not take the Tang family seriously at all. Hake could not stand his attitude and directly stood in front of his sister to demand an explanation. But Nangong Xian had no intention of entangling himself in such trivial matters. He put away that fake smile and directly began assigning blame. He questioned why the Tang family's people from the Anhui branch had brought armed forces across the border into Sichuan. This was no longer a simple private grudge. It directly provoked the most sensitive nerves between families. After the atmosphere had just been filled with tension, Nangong Xian immediately turned and put on a smiling face, warmly asking about Hake's injuries. Looking at Hake's uneasy expression, Tang Suhua immediately saw that something was wrong. This man was definitely doing it on purpose. On the surface, he was showing concern, But in reality, he was exposing Hake's weakness in public. Not only did this give Hake the reputation of being ungrateful, it also spread the disgraceful story that the Tang family's young master had been injured by local thugs. This method of hiding a knife behind a smile truly sent chills down the spine. It seemed this Nangong Xian was far more sinister than imagined. Nangong Xian's smile was all an act. Tang Suhua directly challenged him in public. Since he had come to pursue the blood cult, why had he not followed the rules and requested assistance from the Sichuan branch? There was clearly ill intent behind such abnormal behavior. She sharply pointed out that he wanted to completely cut off her father's path before the alliance leader selection, and even wanted to link the Sichuan branch to the blood cult. This borrowed knife-killing tactic was truly ruthless. The attendant beside him was so anxious he nearly jumped, insisting again and again that they were acting for the Wuling Alliance. Hearing that name, Tang Suhua immediately sensed something wrong. If this was a Wuling Alliance mission, why did the Sichuan branch know nothing about it? If only your Anhui branch knew, then this was the Nangong family's private action. That accusation was not light. Nangong Xian knew very well that as long as Tang Suhua clung to this point, whether or not he had official documents, he would be forced to bear the blame. Seeing that the situation was unfavorable, this man changed his expression faster than flipping a page. He gave Tang Suhua a deep bow. The arrogance from earlier vanished instantly, and he opened his mouth to apologize. He argued that he had not reported it at the first moment because he was afraid of causing a misunderstanding. He even kicked the problem back to Hake, saying that he had thought the young master had invited him to meet, only to be forced to act after discovering traces of the blood cult. These words were indeed smoothly fabricated. He forcefully turned unauthorized action into righteous intervention. Tang Suhua coldly watched him perform, wanting to see how long this man could keep acting. Nangong Xian's move was indeed sinister. He deliberately threw the blame onto Hake to give himself a way out. He even turned around and threatened Tang Suhua, implying that if word spread that Hake had been beaten, the Tang family's young master would lose all face as well. From beginning to end, this man said not a single word about having crossed the border. He was simply an old fox. On the surface, the two were polite to each other and spoke of mutual understanding. In truth, both were calculating how to kill the other. Before this act could finish, Nangong Xian's people were already eager to take the captives away, capturing people on Sichuan's territory, and yet completely disregarding the Tang family. Just as Tang Suhua was about to step forward and take over the interrogation, Nangong Xian directly blocked her path. Behind his smiling face, the fangs that devoured people were finally revealed. Tang Suhua's move was to advance by retreating. First, she pressed him step by step, questioning why Nangong Xian had not followed the rules. She even laid the matter bare. Do you not trust the Sichuan branch? Or do you simply not trust our Tang family? Once such a heavy accusation was placed on him, even if Nangong Xian was arrogant, he did not dare accept it carelessly. Seeing the atmosphere reach freezing point, she suddenly relented and said she would show the Tang family sincerity first, directly allowing Nangong Xian to take the people away. Hake was stunned listening at the side. They had finally captured prisoners with great difficulty, so how could she give him away just like that? In truth, this was precisely Tang Suhua's brilliance. She emphasized that the people were being handed over to Nangong Xian personally, not to the Anhui branch behind him. This nominal separation directly put Nangong Xian over the fire. Tang Suhua's stance was very clear. The clinic had to be taken away by the Tang family today. Nangong Xian had clearly not learned enough of a lesson and was still glaring through gritted teeth. Then the Tang family's truly ruthless figure appeared. The moment this elder showed himself, the surrounding air chilled by several degrees. He had no patience to listen to those hypocritical courtesies and directly made things clear. The one negotiating with you just now was the kindest child of the Tang family. That was already your chance. Now get out at once. Nangong Xian completely lost his temper now. He knew very well that in front of this great figure known as the Dark Heaven Hidden Demon, he would not even have the chance to make a move. He could only obediently accept defeat. Although he verbally agreed to give up on the clinic, the gloomy smile behind his face clearly hid some other wicked idea. Tang Suhua's performance had truly surprised people. She was completely different from the eldest young lady in the rumors. The elder became even more impatient and roared directly, telling them to hurry up and get lost. Nan Gongxian was quite good at finding himself a way down. He had clearly been forced away, yet insisted on saying that he was being magnanimous and leaving the clinic to the Sichuan branch, while he would only take away the blood cult captives. Tang Suhua ignored his petty tricks entirely. She had already arranged the follow-up. Once treatment at the clinic ended, everyone would return to Sichuan with them. Hake watched from the side in total confusion. The situation was changing far too quickly. Before he could react, his sister had already led the others and prepared to withdraw. But just as everyone was preparing to wrap things up, an accident still happened. Tang Min originally wanted to check on his treasure, but when he opened the box, it was completely empty. The most important pill was gone. This was serious trouble. Tang Min stood frozen in place, holding the empty box. He was certain those bastards from the Nangong family had done it. Tang Suhua could only bitterly persuade him from the side. Meanwhile, Nan Gongxian was leading his subordinates in retreat through the forest. Although he had taken the prisoners away, his mood was not relaxed at all. His subordinates had also noticed something wrong. This eldest young lady of the Tang family was completely different from the rumors. Nan Gongxian had to admit that their intelligence had been wrong from beginning to end. In the original reports, Tang Suhua was said to be a low-born, illegitimate daughter, not only ugly in appearance, but also kept locked in a remote courtyard and left to fend for herself. But the woman he had seen today carried bearing in every gesture. How did she look like a cripple imprisoned away from the world? She was simply a priceless treasure. Nan Gongxian realized that he had been deceived. Was the Tang family lying, or was there a traitor inside the Nangong family? Someone was deliberately blocking his information. For this eldest young lady to be hidden so deeply, there had to be a greater conspiracy behind it. His subordinates had also sensed something wrong and suggested immediately replacing all contact people. Just then, new information arrived. The Amay sect had already entered the formation ahead of them, and the atmosphere over there was extremely bad. It seemed a fight could break out at any moment. After hearing this, Nan Gongxian not only did not panic, but instead revealed an expression of assured victory. The Sichuan branch would probably start making trouble very soon, but that was fine. The more things happened, the more exciting the next act would be. In the main hall of the Sichuan Tang clan, the atmosphere was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. The family head, Tang Jihua, sat high in the main seat. He had clearly been waiting for a long time. The moment he opened his mouth, his voice carried icy, killing intent as he asked whether she knew what mistake she had committed. This place would only be opened when passing judgment. The elders had clearly already heard rumors. This was her father's final chance for her. Whether she could convince these old fellows depended on this moment. Tang Suhua publicly admitted what she had done on Mount Amay. Running into the blood cult and the Nangong family was only the beginning. What the family found most intolerable was that she had actually bypassed the Tang clan and privately handed the interrogation entirely to the Wuling Alliance. The family head Tang Jihua's tone was cold to the extreme. Do you think you can represent the Sichuan branch? Or when did I ever give you the right to represent the entire Tang clan? Tang Suhua first lowered her head and admitted her mistake. Immediately after, she raised a question. Would personally interrogating the blood cult's people truly benefit the Tang clan? An elder angrily questioned her loudly. What if the Nangong family failed to extract anything and instead caused the Tang clan's secrets to leak? The entire family would fall into danger. But her next words made the whole room fall silent. The Nangong family had long since set their sights on the blood cult, yet they had concealed it from the Wuling Alliance and never reported it. The family head Tang Jihua signaled for her to continue. The waters behind this matter were likely deeper than everyone imagined. Tang Suhua saw through the Nangong family's thoughts. They only showed themselves to rescue someone once they knew she, a direct descendant of the Tang clan, was in danger. This showed that the other side did not care at all whether the Tang clan lived or died. If the Nangong family had concealed the news of the blood cult's resurgence because they did not trust the Wuling Alliance, then the Tang clan was the first target of their suspicion. After all, Tang clan poison had already been found on the blood cult members. Once the Wuling Alliance learned of this, the Tang clan would no longer be able to explain itself clearly. So she had to act before everyone else and completely tear apart the Nangong family's credibility. The family head Tang Jihua understood her intention. She wanted to strike first and push the Nangong family into the eye of the storm. Nangong Xian was still making excuses for his concealment, believing they could not take risks before confirming the information. But he had no idea that Tang Suhua was already preparing to change the weather. If they dared suspect the Tang clan, they would have to pay the price. On the road back to Anhui, the Nangong family definitely had not reported the blood cult news to the branch. They would rather take the risk than reveal it. There had to be some shameful secret hidden behind this. The Tang clan's rules had always been simple. Repay kindness twofold and enmity tenfold. Now was the time to settle accounts. As long as this matter was exposed to the Wuling Alliance, even if the Nangong family racked their brains, they would have to obediently spit out the secret they were hiding. No matter what that secret was, as long as they could be dragged into the water, that was enough. At the same time, in some unknown dark corner, the truth the Nangong family had desperately tried to cover up seemed about to surface. Nangong Xian stared at the corpse before him. This was no ordinary poison. The black powder in the blood that looked like ash was, upon closer inspection, actually made up of wriggling poisonous insects. These insects had burrowed into the heart and blocked the blood vessels, causing the blood cult members to die instantly. Poison again. No matter how he investigated, he could not get around this word. He was now utterly irritated. Although he had captured all these people and brought them back, they had all died the moment they entered Anhui territory. He had not even extracted half a word from them. After spending so much effort, all he got in return was a pile of stinking corpses. Now all the clues were cut off. The more Nangong Xian investigated, the more he felt something was wrong. Tang clan poisons were everywhere, and that instead seemed like a deliberate cover, meant to lead him away from the truth. The only thing worth being glad about was that the ones who had run into the blood cult that day were people from the Tang clan. Although the Amei sect had also been present, they still knew nothing about the blood cult. The current Wuling Alliance looked peaceful on the surface, but beneath it, things had long since changed. Without external enemies like the blood cult and the demonic cult, the open and hidden struggles inside had only become fiercer. These decades of peace were probably about to come to an end. At the Shangxi branch, a new storm had already begun to gather. The current Wuling Alliance had long since become a pot of chaos. At the Hubei branch, the Zhuge family and the Wudong sect each occupied their own hill. Every branch was fighting openly and secretly for power. The situation of the Sichuan branch was even worse. The Qingchang sect and the Amei sect had joined forces to exclude the Tang clan, while the Tang clan did not take them seriously at all. Nangong Xian held the poisonous insect he had just discovered in his hand. He was extremely conflicted now. The Tang clan was currently the most suspicious. If he told them the news about the blood cult at this time, would he be helping or inviting disaster upon himself? He decided to suppress the news for now and have his subordinates make the incident report even more detailed. Before speaking, he had to thoroughly uncover the truth behind this. Nangong Xian looked into the distance, his heart filled with unwillingness. If he had a few more years, he would definitely be able to completely uproot these sources of disaster. Unfortunately, for now, he still had not managed to sever their roots. Nangong Xian had intended to secretly deal with these problems, but the more he wanted to suppress the matter, the more time he gave the other side to prepare. Before he could decide on a countermeasure, urgent shouts came from outside. A subordinate ran over in a panic to report that an important figure had forced his way in. Nangong Xian had not yet realized whose information network could be so fast. But when he saw the symbol on the other party's clothing, the last bit of hope in his heart disappeared. It was the chairman of the Wuling Alliance's Four Seasons Pavilion. These ruthless figures who rarely showed themselves had actually come to his door at this time. This so-called Four Seasons Pavilion was nominally there to help mediate conflicts among everyone. In reality, it was the headquarters network of spies, specifically watching every move of the various sects and families. Especially this Autumn Pavilion. They held special authority and could search whichever branch they wanted without needing to give notice. Nangong Xian could not understand it no matter how he thought. The Anhui branch was heavily guarded. How did these people dare barge in directly? And, judging from their posture, the other side had clearly come prepared. Zhuge Renhui waved his folding fan and immediately fixed his gaze on that secret autopsy room. He looked at Nangong Xian with a smiling expression, his tone full of the flavor of watching a show. This famous favorite of the Four Seasons Pavilion had actually come personally to greet him. Zhuge Renhui recognized these people at a glance. Nangong Xian knew that since the other party had come prepared, it was useless for him to keep hiding things. He took the initiative and directly ordered the area cleared, using the excuse that too many people would affect the preservation of the corpses. In truth, he wanted to drive away all unrelated people. This method was indeed seasoned. He even proactively handed over the key, behaving with generosity and propriety. The other party could only agree to speak privately and see what medicine this man was selling in his gourd. Zhuge Renhui was the third young master of the Zhuge family. Although the family heir changed year after year, he had always been the one with the most stable position. He was definitely a troublesome opponent. Rumor had it that Zhuge Renhui had lost his sight after deviating in his cultivation. But the way he looked now, it was as if he could see straight through people's hearts. Nangong Xian sat across from him and only felt that this man was far too difficult to deal with. These people had clearly been captured by the Nangong family, yet they had all died before anything could be interrogated out of them. Zhuge Renhui's words, both spoken and implied, were probing whether the Nangong family had killed them to silence them. Nangong Xian naturally would not admit it, but the other party was clearly more concerned about that mysterious opponent. Who exactly was that terrifying existence who had made the blood cult believers flee desperately, even exhausting their true qi in order to get down the mountain? The mysterious person Zhuge Renhui spoke of was not only proficient in the blood cult's evil martial arts, but could even simultaneously use the heart-absorbing art. Such a thing was unimaginable in the martial world. If an ordinary person dared cultivate like that, they would have long since suffered cultivation deviation and died. But that person had not only mastered it, he could even switch freely between two kinds of internal force. The more Nangong Xian listened, the more he felt something was wrong. In the Central Plains, there were only a handful of people with such ability. If the blood cult was full of monsters like this, then the martial world was probably truly about to change. Only now did he realize that his previous actions had indeed been too rash. This muddy water was deeper than imagined. Although Zhuge Renhui verbally said he believed him, he immediately threw out a fatal question. Since that mysterious expert had acted to save the Tang family's people, had Nangong Xian been watching from the side at the time, insisting on waiting until the Tang family's direct descendant was about to die before taking action? Even worse, the Four Seasons Pavilion had already received a letter of accusation saying that the Nangong family had deliberately concealed the news of the blood cult and had even stolen prisoners from the Tang family's hands. This basin of dirty water had been completely poured over the Nangong family's head. Moreover, the amazed sex people had been nearby at the time. They had personally seen the traces left behind by the blood cult. Now Amei was making an even bigger fuss than the Tang family. It seemed the Tang family had long since spread the news. Nangong Xian was truly passive now. He had originally thought this was only a grudge between two families, but now the entire martial world was watching him. How could he break out of this game? Zhuge Renhui then added another blow. The Hubei and Shaanxi branches were all protesting, insisting that the Nangong family explain their movements clearly. Now, it was not only the Tang family watching them. Half the martial world had turned its eyes over. Only then did Nangong Xian react. The Tang family wanted to make this matter explode completely. They had actually spread the news of the blood cult all around them. Did the entire Wuling Alliance now know that the blood cult had reappeared in the martial world? But Zhuge Renhui's next words truly chilled him to the bone. If only the Wuling Alliance knew, that would still be manageable. The most troublesome part was that the imperial court had also intervened. Eunuch Wu of the Eastern Depot had personally come to the door. The Eastern Depot was the emperor's eyes and ears. Once those people set their sights on martial world affairs, they definitely had no good intentions. This time, the Nangong family had not only provoked public anger, they might even be unable to keep their heads. The imperial court had never interfered in martial world affairs before. Yet this time, The Eastern Depot had appeared directly. If this was handled poorly, it would become a war between the imperial court and the martial world. The situation had already completely changed. Zhuge Renhui revealed a key piece of inside information. It turned out that great official owed the miracle doctor a favor. So in the end, the two sides had reached a compromise and allowed Tang Shui to remain in the Tang family's medicine hall. This deal was now completely settled. Only now did Nangong Xian understand. The Wuling Alliance and the imperial court had probably reached an agreement long ago. Only they had been kept in the dark. The feeling of being treated like a pawn truly left his chest stifled. Zhuge Renhui laid his cards on the table. Who exactly was the extra corpse in a morgue? Nangong Xian remained silent for a long while before finally admitting that it was his cousin, Nangong Qinghai. This cousin was an expert of the Wuling Alliance. Nangong Xian explained that he had been reluctant to part with his kin and had also been busy pursuing the blood cult, so he had been unable to let him rest in peace. Zhuge Renhui saw through the truth at a glance. The reason Nangong Xian had pressed the Tang family step by step was definitely because he had found something on the corpse, and that fatal clue was poison. It was said the blood cult had stolen the Tang family's secret poison. This poison seeped deep into the bones, making an antidote impossible to prepare. It seemed the blood cult wanted to kill with a borrowed knife and make the Nangong family and the Tang family fight to the bitter end. So it was Tang family poison after all. Nangong Xian felt painfully stifled. The cousin he'd been proudest of had actually died so unclearly beneath poison. Anyone's first reaction would definitely be to fight the Tang family to the death. But the Tang family's conduct this time left him with nothing to say. They not only did not cover things up, but instead openly admitted that the poison had leaked out. They had even made the news of the blood cult public at the first opportunity. This sense of responsibility made Nangong Xian feel that his earlier suspicion had been petty. Just then, Zhuge Renhui took out an exquisite small box. Inside was actually the antidote to that strange poison. Even more absurdly, the Tang family had publicly released the formula for this medicine as well. Also, fellow members of the martial world could guard against the evil cult. Nangong Xian looked at the antidote before him, his heart utterly shaken. To the Tang family, poison formulas were their lifeblood. Once a universal antidote existed, their unique secret techniques would be no different from waste paper. To deal with the evil cult, the Tang family was practically cutting off both of its own arms. This spirit of sacrificing everything for the greater good made Nangong Xian realize that he had truly misjudged them this time. The Tang family were the ones with true vision. Nangong Xian's heart was now full of regret. If this antidote had appeared earlier, perhaps his cousin would not have died. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. This kind of belated salvation was the hardest to bear. Zhuge Renhui turned and left, while inwardly calculating another matter. The Tang family's recent behavior was far too abnormal. This method of cutting off their own arms to preserve the greater whole was definitely not something an ordinary person could think of. It seemed there had to be an expert behind the Tang family controlling the situation. Who exactly was secretly guiding all of this? Late at night, someone suddenly came to visit. Zhuge Renhui did not even raise his head before telling them to come in. Apart from Pang Sixian, the master of the Four Directions Pavilion, there was probably no one else who could avoid all the guards and reach this place. This time, the other party skipped even the greetings. He opened with heavy news. He planned to personally lead people to the North Sea because an extraordinary clue had been found there. It turned out that the forces of the North Sea Ice Palace had already quietly infiltrated the Central Plains and had even fought martial artists here. This was no small matter. If the Ice Palace truly intended to interfere in the Central Plains, then all the previous chaos could be explained. It seemed this martial world storm was far more violent than imagined. Zhuge Renhui brought a piece of news that chilled the heart. The long-missing Nangong Qinghai had finally been found. But before Pang Sixian could breathe a sigh of relief, the other party's next words were like a basin of cold water. What the Nangong family had brought back was only a corpse. Pang Sixian's first reaction was that the other man was joking. But seeing Zhuge Renhui's serious expression, he knew this matter had completely spiraled out of control. Even more terrifyingly, Nangong Qinghai had not died from an accident, but from an extremely sinister poison. could have been done by the people of the North Sea Ice Palace again. If that was true, then those people's reach was far too long. Hearing the word poison, Pang Sixian immediately thought of a terrifying name. Zhuge Renhui gave an affirmative answer. That was right. It was the long-vanished blood cult. Previously, they had kept their eyes fixed on the North Sea Ice Palace. After all, apart from that side, no one could use ice true qi to such perfection. But who could have expected that Nangong Qinghai's death would actually be connected to the blood cult? Pang Sixian knew that the current situation had completely changed. Their next target had to shift to the blood cult. This was destined to be a long and dangerous contest. Nangong Xian stepped into the family head's private study for the first time. He had never been qualified to enter this place before. With every step he took, he felt as if he were walking toward certain death. But the moment he pushed the door open, the scene inside surprised him. It was not as imposing and oppressive as he had imagined. Instead, it was very simple and plain. The Nangong family head stood before the window, and his tone actually sounded rather gentle. The family head told Nangong Xian to sit closer. But this unprecedented treatment only made Nangong Xian feel even less at ease. In the rigidly hierarchical Nangong family, who would dare truly sit as an equal with the family head? Not only was the family head not angry, he even smiled and began speaking of his own past. It turned out that when he was young, he had once been as restrained as Nangong Xian. This sudden sense of closeness made the atmosphere somewhat subtle. Nangong Xian could not figure out the other man's intentions at all. He had clearly come to receive punishment, yet the family head was reminiscing with him. This abnormal behavior left him unable to respond. The family head turned and looked out the window, pointing at the endless stretch of buildings below. From here, one could see the entire Nangong family estate. The family head suddenly dropped a bombshell, saying that this whole domain would belong to Nangong Xian sooner or later. To Nangong Xian, words like that were simply like a dream. What did it feel like to possess so much power? He did not even dare imagine it. But the family head put away his smile, and his tone grew heavy. He said that this kind of life was actually extremely stifling. All power and status would eventually become responsibilities that could not be unloaded from one's shoulders. To protect this family inheritance, one had to learn to weigh the value of everything precious, even the things one cared about most. Then the family head changed the subject and suddenly asked whether this plan had been his idea. Nangong Xian said nothing. He only knelt deeply. The family head looked at Nangong Xian before him and discovered that he was completely different from that steady Nangong heir. He was like a wild beast driven into a dead end, desperately trying to devour everything before him. The family head finally revealed the truth. Back then, sending Nangong Xian to carry out the mission had actually been meant to give this illegitimate son a chance, so that he could enter the family's core with a proper name and status. No one had expected an accident to happen midway. Nangong Xian's little tricks to hide his tracks were completely transparent to the family head. Even his intention to protect that girl at the cost of offending the Tang family had been seen through. The family head turned to look at him, a trace of coldness in his voice. No matter what the starting point had been, the result was that he had utterly ruined everything. This failure had caused the family disastrous losses. Nangong Xian said nothing, waiting for the family head to name his punishment. But the family head suddenly changed his mind. He wanted no compensation at all. He even intended to give Nangong Xian another chance. But this was absolutely not out of mercy. From this moment on, every choice Nangong Xian made would directly determine the future of the entire Nangong family. This was the true great gamble. The family head's words sounded like some kind of privilege. As long as he bore the surname Nangong, no one would dare touch him no matter how grave a mistake he made. Was this absolute immunity truly a gift? For the first time, Nangong Xian felt that those portraits were pressing down on his heart like great mountains. This was the heavy burden the young master had to bear. In the past, he had always thought about how to live more easily. Only now did he realize how naive that thought had been. The family had promised to give him another chance because this position was destined to face even more suffering. Nangong Xian looked at the power before him and suddenly realized that escaping punishment was the greatest humiliation of all. He did not accept this special leniency. Instead, he straightened his back and knelt on the ground, loudly asking the family head to punish him for his crimes. He wanted to use this method to completely bid farewell to his weak former self. This was no longer a simple admission of fault. It was the beginning of a true heir's awakening. Nangong Xian finally saw the gap clearly. He admitted frankly that with his current level, he had no right to hope for another chance. This sober self-awareness instead made the family head regard him in a new light. He took the initiative to request 2 years of seclusion. But before disappearing, he intended to personally visit the Tang family to apologize and compensate every branch that had suffered losses. This was what it truly meant to take responsibility. The family head nodded and agreed to his request. Looking at this young man who had once been restless and impetuous, now able to take the initiative to lower his head and deal with the mess, this change in temperament was even more surprising than progress in martial arts. The family head gazed out the window and sank into thought. He had originally thought Nangong Xian was only a sapling that had not yet grown. He had not expected that in such a short time, he had already learned how to stand upright beneath heaven and earth. To a defeated man, the world seemed especially vast and empty. Nangong Xian walked alone down the corridor, while the family head silently watched him from behind, looking forward to seeing what kind of posture he would return with 2 years later. Remember everything before you. This vast land is the world you must protect in the future. The expectation in the family head's eyes already said everything. That frail little sapling of the past would eventually grow through wind and rain into a towering tree vast enough to blot out the sky. The miracle doctor had actually come to the Tang clan. The news seemed to grow wings, and the entire family instantly exploded with excitement. 2 servants were hurrying off to watch the commotion, but almost bumped into the young master, who was sneaking through the garden. Hake, the future head of the Tang clan, was currently hiding in the bushes, terrified of being caught red-handed by the elders. He quietly warned the servants not to tell on him no matter what. If his elders punished him for slacking off, there would be no avoiding a scolding and discipline. Seeing Hake looking as if he had been trapped in a cage, the servants quickly patted their chests and promised that they would take this secret to their graves. Could the miracle doctor really enter the poison pavilion? The servants were gathered together gossiping. After all, that place was full of poisons that killed the moment they drew blood. For ordinary people, entering it was simply courting death. They heard that Miss Suhua was personally leading the way. But the Tang clan's rules were extremely strict. Anyone who had not practiced martial arts could forget about going inside. Even Hake, the future family head, was not yet qualified to set foot inside. Hake, hiding behind the wall, heard everything. What unspeakable secrets were hidden in places like the Poison Pavilion and the 9 Transmissions Pavilion, places even he could not enter. Sister, Hake shouted from far away as he ran over. Seeing Tang Suhua finally willing to go outside for some fresh air, he could at last breathe a sigh of relief. After all, anyone would feel stifled watching her shut herself in her room all day. Hake said that even father was secretly concerned about her. Even those rigid elders were actually much softer-hearted in private. Tang Suhua only smiled helplessly when she heard this. If everyone had not truly been protecting her, after causing such a huge disturbance last time at Clear Lie Hall, how could her punishment have been as simple as house arrest? But as they talked, Hake exposed himself first. Compared with his sister's situation, he was now more afraid of being caught for skipping training. Sure enough, he still could not hide it from his sister's eyes. Did you skip training and sneak out again? Hake could not say a word for a long while. It seemed he really had an urgent question this time. Since the secret of the antidote had already spread, why was it still hidden on the top floor of the 9 Transmissions Pavilion? Hake's little head worked rather quickly, and he felt this treasure should have been moved elsewhere long ago. Hake had no authority to enter that place at all. The elders were afraid of being poisoned and did not dare go in. The family head and elders also found the matter too trivial. In the end, the whole Tang clan could only rely on his sister to make this trip. Tang Suhua helplessly accepted reality and casually asked whether he wanted to go have a look with her. Hake was so frightened that he refused again and again. He had skipped class and sneaked out. If he went back late and was caught red-handed, the consequences would be simply unimaginable. "Then I'll wait for you to come back at your residence, sister." Hake smiled and waved goodbye. Since there was nothing urgent to watch out for after returning, Tang Suhua decided to deal with that troublesome matter first. She walked alone toward the depths of the family estate. There stood a magnificent 9-story tower. In the medicine hall of the Sichuan Tang clan, this was the most tightly controlled forbidden area. Outsiders called it the Poison Pavilion, but its true name was the 9 Transmissions Pavilion. From the 4th floor all the way to the top, it was piled full of deadly poisons that killed the moment they drew blood. This was not only forbidden ground of the Tang clan, but also a treasury where century-old secret manuals were stored. Once one stepped through this door, it meant entering the world of poisons. As Tang Suhua moved the poisons, she muttered under her breath, since the secret manuals had already been taken away, why not conveniently move these poison bottles somewhere else too? She slowly climbed the stairs. The higher she went, the more astonishing the hidden secrets became. In the 9 Transmissions Pavilion, there was an unwritten rule. The higher the floor, the more deadly the poisons stored there. The 8th floor held the Tang clan's most famous 8 great strange poisons. And the legendary 9th floor was the true forbidden ground. In the 9th floor chamber, there was only a thick stack of records. They were incomplete manuscripts left behind after countless predecessors failed. They had spent their entire lives trying to develop a poison capable of breaking through a body immune to all poisons. This was practically the ultimate dream of every master poison user. In fact, in Tang Suhua's previous life, she had truly completed this forbidden poison with her own hands. That power capable of destroying all defenses filled even her with awe. But did absolute invincibility truly exist in this world? Outsiders all said that Tang Suhua was immune to all poisons. In truth, this was not some talent at all. Her body was not naturally immune to toxins. Rather, it possessed a beast-like instinct toward danger. Whether it was deadly poison or killing intent, as long as it could threaten this body, she would expel the toxins like a madwoman. Even wounds could heal at terrifying speed. What kind of title was this antidote to all poisons? It was clearly survival instinct at work. Tang Suhua stepped onto the wooden steps of the 9 Transmissions Pavilion. She intended to refill this empty pavilion with the lethal poisons from her previous life. But only the poison that had killed her absolutely could not appear in reality yet. The traitor who stole the blazing fire her poison, and those spies hiding in the shadows, none of them should dream of escaping. Before digging out all these rats, she had to hide her final trump card. As soon as she went out, she ran into an uninvited guest. Tang Min stood in front of her with a beaming smile. He had just returned from a long trip, and the moment he opened his mouth, he began speaking in a strangely sarcastic tone. "I heard you were just scolded by those old fellows. No wonder you're so angry now." Tang Suhua could not help retorting, "Who's angry?" The other party did not take it seriously at all. Instead, he grinned mischievously and leaned closer. "All right, stop pretending, Suhua. I'm 3 years older than you, after all," using seniority to pressure people again. Tang Suhua looked at the shameless fellow before her, and only one thought remained in her mind. Wasting words on him was truly a waste of time. Tang Min's habit of running his mouth had not changed in the slightest. He insisted that being confined was not a big deal. If she felt stifled inside, she could come find him for a fight anytime to vent her anger. Who had the free time to fight with him? Tang Suhua found it strange. He was clearly still supposed to be in seclusion, so how had he appeared so openly now? It turned out he had been out for 3 days already. This information gap was too ridiculous. There was no need to ask. It had definitely been that muddle-headed Hake who passed on the message. At the mention of Hake, both of them could only sigh helplessly. A wave of bitterness rose in Tang Suhua's heart. Tang Min was always so gentle, yet whenever she thought of those absurd decisions she had made in her previous life, she could not lift her head. He was the debt she most wanted to make up for in this life. The Tang clan that had once been glorious was now reduced to a sea of flames. As the master of the medicine hall, Tang Min was still guarding his precious medicinal herbs even at that moment. Facing the demonic cult's frenzied attack, he did not choose to flee. Instead, he remained alone in that solitary tower, dealing with the last batch of deadly poison. His consciousness had already begun to blur. This was probably his final end. To prevent the deadly poison from leaking out and harming others, he forcibly took an antidote to stay conscious and personally destroyed everything in the flames. He endured pain ordinary people could not imagine, simply because he believed that as long as Tang Suhua was still alive, the Tang clan still had hope of being rebuilt. But he could never have imagined that the person in whom he had placed such high hopes would ultimately choose the most tragic method of all, dragging her enemies down with her in mutual destruction. That foolish decision back then had made Tang Min's lifetime of effort come to nothing. Since she had been given another chance, she would absolutely not let tragedy repeat itself. Now, because of the leaked secret, she had been confined, yet Tang Min came over as if nothing had happened, complaining that the other elders were too cruel while repeatedly saying he would support her forever. Tang Min smiled and comforted her, saying that no matter what choice she made, he would always stand on her side. Looking at this spirited man before her, Tang Suhua's heart was filled with mixed emotions. In the memories of her previous life, he had given everything to protect the family. Yet now, he was even younger than she was after her rebirth, standing alive right before her. This vivid feeling of regaining what had been lost made her even more determined to change fate. Tang Shui never expected that the eldest young lady, Tang Suhua, would actually name him specifically to serve as deputy captain of her personal guards in the inner courtyard. The others thought he was dazed because the responsibility was so great. While urging him to perform well, they also envied him for having such good luck. But Tang Shui's heart kept pounding. Could his identity as a spy already have been exposed? That was absolutely impossible. Since the opportunity had already been delivered to his mouth, he might as well go along with it. As long as he could infiltrate the inner courtyard openly and legitimately, all the Tang family's core secrets would be his. Tang Shui finally stepped through the gates of the inner courtyard. As long as he could render great service this time, he would definitely attract that important person's attention. It just so happened that he had also had enough of the eldest young lady's gaze. He might as well use this chance to dig out every secret she was hiding behind her back. As soon as he entered the room, he heard his colleagues speaking with sour envy from his side. Every one of them was terribly jealous. Irritated, he snapped back at them, telling these people to shut up quickly. It turned out everyone was passing around a rumor that someone had actually obtained the legendary mist pill. That was a miraculous medicine an ordinary person would never see in a lifetime. It was said that eating one could turn a person into a peerless expert. But after hearing this, he only felt that these people were truly ignorant. He directly poured cold water on them in public, saying that the thing was no miraculous elixir at all. It was only an ordinary tonic, casually refined by the miracle doctor. The rumors outside were all nonsense. Seeing everyone frozen in place, he only felt that these people were laughably easy to fool. Everyone had originally thought that what the eldest young lady had rewarded them with was some treasure. But after hearing Tang Shui say this, they all felt they had celebrated for nothing. If it were truly valuable, how could it have been handed out to them so casually? A colleague curiously asked what the deputy captain wanted with him. Tang Shui deliberately pretended to be unconcerned and said that he was about to be transferred to the inner courtyard and would even be serving as the eldest young lady's personal guard. This news was like a pot exploding. Everyone was extremely envious. While laughing and roughhousing, they said he had truly struck great fortune. If he performed well, he would rise rapidly in the Tang family from now on. Watching this group of people make a scene, Tang Shui was calculating something else in his heart. This was exactly the effect he wanted. As long as the news spread, those accomplices hiding in the shadows would naturally know that he had successfully infiltrated the inside. Tang Shui had already spent a full 10 days in the inner courtyard. But every day, this eldest young lady did nothing proper except draw. He felt he was simply wasting his time. He had finally waited for the old man delivering goods to arrive, but as soon as the other party pushed open the door and saw the eldest young lady, he froze. Before he could even speak clearly, he turned and ran. Tang Suhua, however, remained perfectly calm, as if she had long since grown used to this kind of reaction from others. She continued lowering her head and drawing that endless picture of hers. Seeing that the 10-day deadline was about to arrive, Tang Shue's assignment would end today. Was this infiltration really going to yield nothing at all? Tang Shui was dismissed just like that. Since the eldest young lady had spoken, he could only obediently return to his own post. As he left, he still could not hold back from glancing back at that embroidery pattern. He had originally thought that since she busied herself there every day, she must be preparing some major move. But after all that, she was actually just embroidering this kind of ordinary pattern. Tang Shui could not describe how disappointed he felt. Was this eldest young lady pretending to be stupid, or was she truly this bored? How long exactly did these guards have to keep watch? It had been a full 10 days, and he had not even seen his sister's face. Hake was worrying about where to hide and slack off today when he unexpectedly ran into Oldine. At this hour, if he was not staying in the blacksmith shop, why would he appear here? Wasn't that direction the guest rooms? What was old Een sneaking over there for? Hake really could not suppress his curiosity, so he quietly followed. But the moment he pushed open the door, the scene before him left him completely stunned. So this was her true face. The maid who usually only embroidered was secretly practicing this kind of sword technique in private. She asked in a low voice, "Do you know what the greatest advantage of the Tang clan's hidden weapons is? It isn't how strong their killing power is, but their unpredictable changes that make them impossible to guard against." Facing this sudden test, Hake stammered for a long while and could not answer. The other party simply changed the question. "What do you think is the core of hidden weapons?" Tang Shui tentatively answered. "Isn't it the hidden weapon itself?" Tang Min shook his head. Hidden weapons were naturally important, but what truly determined victory or defeat was actually the ultimate control of inner force. Just as practicing the sword was not randomly swinging it, using hidden weapons was not blindly throwing things. As Tang Min demonstrated, he said that the true essence was precisely delivering the object in one's hand to the target. As long as one grasped the mysteries of inner force, what one held in one's hand did not matter at all. Whether it was a broken cocoon by the roadside, a purse in one's pocket, or even a small stone on the ground, in his hands, all of them were lethal killing moves. Everything in the world could become a hidden weapon. This was the foundation on which the Tang clan stood in the martial world. And look at yourself. Tang Min's voice suddenly became stern. You haven't even mastered the most basic throwing knives. What are you going to use to fight others? The scolding for back then was still engraved in his heart. Having a body full of inner force, but not knowing how to use, it was simply a reckless waste of heaven's gifts. But looking at Jian Qi before him, Hake finally realized how far behind he was. She was actually constantly switching weapons, from a long sword to a short blade, without the slightest hesitation in her movements. This ability to adapt to weapons was absurdly strong. There was clearly a convenient long sword on the rack, yet she deliberately chose a short saber. Could it be that changes in weapon length had no effect on her at all? Before he could figure it out, a terrifying force suddenly erupted in the courtyard. Who's sneaking around over there? This was bad. He had been caught red-handed peeping. Dian Qi's flying sword almost took his life. The blade grazed his scalp and pierced into the pillar. Hake had truly kicked an iron plate this time. He never expected that this girl would strike so ruthlessly. Dian Qi was also startled. "Young master, why are you here?" Hake could only stand up awkwardly, while still forcing himself to preserve his dignity. "It seems you're not only skilled with swordplay. Your flying sword ability is impressive too." Dian Qi apologized repeatedly, saying this was a habit left over from dealing with local thugs back when she was in a gang. As long as she sensed someone watching her, the weapon in her hand would automatically fly out. Hake felt a chill down his spine as he listened. He could only wave his hand and say he was fine. Fortunately, he had dodged quickly just now. Otherwise, he would already have died here. For a time, the atmosphere became somewhat awkward. Who could have imagined that the dignified young master would come to secretly watch someone practice martial arts? How was he supposed to smooth this over? Hake originally wanted to explain that he had sneaked out, but Dian Qi's words were full of thorns. It must be nice being the young master. If you don't want to train, you can skip class whenever you like. Ordinary people don't even dare dream of such freedom to do whatever they want. There was an indescribable loneliness in her tone. Forget practicing martial arts like the Tang clan's disciples. Right now, even whether she could stay was a problem. This difference in status was simply not something effort could fill. Rain suddenly began falling from the sky. Dian Qi stood motionless in the rain. Only when someone nearby reminded her that she should go to the clinic. Did she recover from those complicated emotions? It turned out that in this family, she had never had the right to be willful. Hake felt that with Dian-Chi's abilities, entering the martial hall and becoming an expert would be more than enough. After all, back on Mount Amei, everyone had witnessed her strength. But Dian-Chi gave a self-mocking smile. So what if she had ability? Right now, no one was willing to give her a second glance. Whether it was the clinic or the martial hall, there seemed to be no place for her. She had even heard that she would be sent away soon, which was why she had deliberately chosen to practice near that courtyard. She had only hoped to catch the attention of some important person and win herself a chance to stay. This effort, humble to the bone, left Hake unable to say anything for a moment. It turned out that every time she swung her sword, she was begging fate for mercy. The rain fell harder and harder. The two of them stood like that in the rain and sank into silence. In this strict hierarchy of the Tang clan, talent was sometimes truly worthless. It looks like this rain won't stop anytime soon. Dian-Chi looked at the gloomy sky, her tone full of helplessness. This oppressive atmosphere made the topic just now feel even heavier. Hake advised her to hurry back inside and rest. He also planned to leave first. After all, in a place like this, knowing certain truths only made people feel worse. The two of them parted ways in the rain. Watching Dian-Chi's lonely back, Hake actually felt quite awful. In this great family with its strict hierarchy, there was truly very little he, the young master, could do. But as he walked, he suddenly stopped. Was he really going to watch helplessly as she was sent away? If there were some things he did not even try, he feared he would never get past this in his heart for the rest of his life. A true Tang clan disciple could turn even a single blade of grass into a deadly weapon. Even sheltered young ladies who had never practiced martial arts could throw something with decent form. But Hake could not understand, no matter how he thought about it. Why was he the only exception? This self-doubt became especially piercing on that rainy night. He would never forget that day when his sister had been trapped in a siege, her life hanging by a thread. He had desperately wanted to save her, but the result had become the nightmare of his entire life. Those throwing knives had scattered all over the ground, yet they had not managed to injure the enemy in the slightest. In this family famous for hidden weapons, he could not even protect the person closest to him. This was the deepest pain in his heart. If Nangong Xian had not suddenly appeared and saved his sister at the critical moment, the consequences would have been unimaginable. He never wanted to experience a second time the feeling of helplessly watching a loved one fall into danger. In fact, he knew very well in his heart that even if he had been holding the throwing knives he was best at back then, with his meager ability, he probably still could not have changed anything. This feeling of powerlessness was what filled him with the most despair. Every time he picked up a throwing knife, that voice would keep circling in his mind. Could he really hit the target? This self-doubt was like a shadow he could not shake off, dragging him back with a death grip. He knew very clearly in his heart that if he continued shrinking back like this, his life would probably end here. It would be impossible for him to amount to anything. Even someone as talented as Dian-Chi was struggling day and night with everything she had. As the young master, what right did he have to stand here pitying himself? Rainwater ran down his clothes, but he could no longer care about that. He could not go on like this. He had to cross this hurdle in his heart and completely bid farewell to that useless self. Only by fully escaping the shadow of the past could the things in his hands truly become weapons. There should still be people at the training ground, right? He could not wait another moment now. He only wanted to rush over immediately and prove himself. But as he ran, he suddenly stopped. Why did this place look so unfamiliar? Could he have run in the wrong direction? Dian-Chi had originally thought that by staying in the Tang clan, she could finally become someone useful. But reality had struck her with a heavy blow. Watching others sweat as they trained, she realized that this place did not need her at all. The feeling of being abandoned was not pleasant, but even knowing she was unnecessary, she still had no intention of stopping. Even if the short sword in her hand did not suit her at all, even if no one gave her a glance, she would still fight to the end on this path. Dian-Chi was now so regretful, she could barely stand it. That inexplicable burst of anger just now had come at the worst possible time. She had actually vented all of it on the young master. If the young master felt this was a provocation against the Tang clan, then she would definitely have to pack up and leave this time. The more she thought about it, the more afraid she became. In her panic, she turned around and wanted to explain but who knew that she would step too hard and crash directly into someone's arms? The collision was not light. Before she could see who it was, that familiar voice came from above her head. Tang Min stood in the rain holding an umbrella, asking where she was planning to run. Dian Chi's whole body stiffened. She stammered out, "Elder." Now she was in big trouble. She was supposed to be training at the drill ground, but she had sneaked out and been caught red-handed. If this lord learned the truth, the consequences would be unimaginable. At the critical moment, her mind spun quickly. Pointing at the pouring rain, she began spouting nonsense, saying that the rain was too heavy and she had been planning to return to her room to hide from it. Tang Min quietly watched her act. Although his eyes were full of suspicion, fortunately, he did not intend to expose her on the spot. He merely called for her to go take shelter from the rain first. She had finally muddled through this crisis for the moment. Tang Min brought her inside to take shelter. Dian Chi was still secretly delighted, feeling that her quick reaction just now had finally saved her little life. But before she could breathe a sigh of relief, Tang Min suddenly spoke and asked what exactly she had been doing just now. This time, Dian Chi was completely at a loss for words. She could only stand there pretending to be a wooden dummy. Tang Min looked at her like this and sighed helplessly. Young people these days were truly difficult to understand. But immediately afterward, he suddenly dropped a bombshell and asked what she thought of the Wudong sect. The topic changed too quickly, and Dian Chi was completely stunned. Among the 9 great sects of the Central Plains Wuling Alliance, the Wudong sect's swordsmanship was famously powerful. But Dian Chi never expected that Tang Min had suddenly brought this up for her sake. He intended to recommend Dian Chi to the Wudong sect, and even said that with her current talent, only by going to Wudong could she bring it to its fullest. This was not a discussion at all. He had clearly already paved the road for her. After hearing this, Dian Chi nearly jumped on the spot. She had been staying here perfectly well. How had she suddenly ended up being sent off to become a Taoist? She hurriedly called out to Tang Min. This was absolutely not something to joke about. Dian Chi had always thought she had no talent, and that the Tang clan had no need for someone like her and wanted to send her away. To put it plainly, she felt she was a burden being swept out the door. After Tang Min heard this, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. He asked in return, if she truly had no ability at all, why would he go to so much trouble to personally send her to Wudong? Now, it was Dian Chi's turn to be completely stunned. It turned out that not only was she not trash, she was a genius valued by the elder. But there was still a knot in her heart. Since she was so capable, why was the Tang clan unwilling to keep her and insisting on pushing her toward the Wudong sect? Dian Chi muttered quietly that since she had talent, she did not want to go anywhere. She only wanted to stay in the Tang clan and repay its kindness. Tang Min sighed and asked whether she knew the difference between a clan and a sect. A sect relied on ability, but a clan cared about bloodline. As long as she was not a direct line descendant, even if she was a genius, she could forget about making a name for herself in the Tang clan in this lifetime. Dian Chi still refused to give up. She said she did not care about status or title, as long as she could help. But Tang Min interrupted her directly, saying that her talent was simply too astonishing. Staying in the Tang clan would only be like burying a bright pearl in dust. This gentle thought of hers would only ruin her future. Talent had never been some gentle gift. Tang Min's words were painful to hear, but they were also the cruelest truth of the martial world. As long as she became famous, countless madmen would fix their eyes on her, wanting to step on her to make a name for themselves. If she were only an ordinary person, staying in the Tang clan might let her live a peaceful life. But she just had to be a genius. Staying here would only wear away her edge, and in the end, she would not even be able to protect herself. In truth, Tang Min had originally wanted to keep her, but one person had strongly opposed it. That person was Suhua. She had personally told Tang Min that if they were truly acting for Dian Chi's good, they had to send her away. Dian Chi never expected that it was Suhua who wanted to push her away, because in Suhua's eyes, Dian Chi was absolutely no mediocre person. She was someone destined to become the best under heaven. Only the vast world outside was worthy of her future. Dian Chi was completely dumbfounded as she listened. This sounded almost like a joke. Tang Min, however, remained calm and did not forget to mock her a little, saying that with her current frail appearance, it was indeed hard to connect her with the word genius. But joke for jokes, in the end, Tang Min still gave her the right to choose. If she truly did not like Wudong, the world was vast, and she could choose wherever she wanted. But in his heart, only Wudong was worthy of her talent. Watching Tang Min's receding back, Dianqi stood alone in the corridor for a long time. It turned out that in this world, there really were still people who cared about her future. She had never been the forgotten one. Suhua had actually said she had talent. Dianqi repeatedly turned this sentence over in her mind. Could she, who had always been treated as a burden, truly become the genius others spoke of? She finally understood Suhua's painstaking intention. Sending her away was not to abandon her at all, but to let her truly become stronger and take hold of the fate that belonged to the best under heaven. Tang Suhua was in her room when a servant's voice suddenly came from outside the door, saying that the young master of the Nangong family had come. And he had specifically named her, wanting to meet with her privately today. Why had someone from the Nangong family come looking for her at this time? It seemed these peaceful days were about to stir with waves again.